Chapter 803. Seeing the soulless and incomparably haggard Yi Dingding, Tang Zheng's heart was filled with tenderness. He immediately pulled her into his embrace and was reluctant to let go. He wished he could rub her into his body. "Dingding, you've suffered," Tang Zheng emotionally said. Yi Dingding hugged his waist and buried her head in his chest. Smelling the familiar scent on his body, her entire body trembled as she choked out, "You're not dead. You're finally back." "Yes, I'm not dead. I still want to see you, so how could I bear to die? But do you know how worried I was about you?" Yi Dingdong's voice rose a few octaves as she punched Tang Zheng's back. Then her fists were like raindrops as they hit Tang Zheng. "You're too bad. Why didn't you come back when you were fine? You made me worry for so long. I even have the heart to die. My heart is broken." Although the fists hit his body, he felt that Yi Dingdong's heart was 1,000 times more painful than this. He couldn't help but feel like his heart was being cut by a knife. The fists stopped. Yi Dingdong seemed to have collapsed as she laid on top of Tang Zheng's body. "Your body is weak. Lie down for a while," Tang Zheng advised. Yi Dingdong had lost a lot of weight and he almost couldn't recognize her. "Carry me over," Yi Dingdong said coquettishly. She had been with Tang Zheng for so long, but she had never used such a coquettish tone before, so it sounded very charming. Tang Zheng smiled and carried her up by the waist. Yi Dingdong wrapped her arms around his neck as she stared into his eyes. She had fantasized countless times before about him hugging her so intimately. Now that her dream had come true, her heart was filled with sweet warmth. After experiencing this life and death separation, she thought of many questions. If she had agreed to be with him earlier, she wouldn't have this regret. Perhaps, if he had her by his side, he might not have died. Even if he died, it would be a great blessing to have her by his side. As for Tang Zheng's romantic debt, she chose to ignore it. Moreover, there was another voice in her heart that defended him. There were thousands of successful men in the world, and this kind of man would definitely attract the attention of many women. This was not all his fault. Moreover, during this period of time in the capital, she had seen the behavior of many men in the big families. They were even more unscrupulous than Tang Zheng. In comparison, Tang Zheng appeared to be more outstanding. Therefore, the conflict in her heart was dissolving bit by bit. She silently swore that if she could see Tang Zheng again, she would definitely not dwell on those questions anymore. Although she still hadn't gotten over the hurdle in her heart, she didn't want to think about it for the time being. She just wanted to be with Tang Zheng and couldn't bear to part with him again. "Kiss me." Lying on the bed, Yi Dingdong closed her eyes and said with a red face. Tang Zheng was slightly stunned. He didn't expect her to be so proactive. Looking at the beautiful face so close to him, he couldn't help but kiss it. Yi Dingdong responded in a jerky and intense manner. Her whole body went soft as if it had turned into water. Her breath was like orchids as she gasped for breath. She gradually opened her eyes and stared at Tang Zheng with her dark eyes. It was as if she wanted to imprint his appearance in her heart and never erase it. "Tang Zheng, I love you," Yi Dingdong said. Tang Zheng shook his head and excitedly kissed her. The two rolled together on the bed. "Tang Zheng, I will give my body to you. I want to truly belong to you and have you," Yi Dingdong whispered into Tang Zheng's ear. Tang Zheng had fantasized about this day before, but he didn't expect it to come so suddenly. He couldn't help but be stunned. But looking at her burning eyes and haggard appearance, he was both happy and distressed. He stroked her cheeks and said, "You are too tired. You need to rest well. This matter isn't urgent." Yi Dingdong stared at him without backing down. She stubbornly said, "No, I want it." After saying this, she tyrannically tore at Tang Zheng's clothes. With the beauty taking the initiative and being so affectionate, Tang Zheng really couldn't find a reason to refuse. Yi Dingdong's performance was very wild, but also very unfamiliar. Very quickly, she stripped Tang Zheng naked and then admired his strong physique. Her face was so red that it seemed like it was going to drip blood, and her heart was beating fast, but she still resisted the shyness in her heart and took the initiative to gently stroke Tang Zheng. A moment later, the two met each other and became one. Yi Dingdong felt pain and bit Tang Zheng's shoulder. A row of teeth marks were clearly visible. After the battle, Yi Dingdang wrapped her arms and legs around Tang Jing like an octopus. The corners of her mouth hung in a satisfied smile. Tang Jing let out a long breath. Yi Dingdang's wildness was beyond his imagination. Although it was her first time tasting the forbidden fruit, because the foundation and flexibility of a martial artist's body were very good, the battle just now was really to their heart's content. They had reached a state where they forgot about everything else. At this moment, there was only each other in their eyes and hearts. It was difficult for them to tolerate anything else. Yi Dingdang gently touched the teeth marks on his shoulder and asked in distress, "Does it hurt?" Tang Jing foolishly smiled and shook his head. "It doesn't hurt. You deserve it. Who told you to use so much strength? It's my first time, so I don't know how painful it is." Yi Dingdang said with a pout. "Yes, I deserve it." Tang Jing hugged her tightly and said with pity, "This is my mark, do you know?" Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only nod. "I know your mark. From now on you're mine." "Humph, I'll see how you explain yourself if other people see it," Yi Dingdang said mischievously. With this intimate relationship between the two, that layer of barrier was finally pierced through. Their intimacy became a lot more natural. "I'm yours and you're mine." Tang Jing gently kissed her forehead and said with a smile. Yi Dingdang's lips curled up and sweetly smiled. She affectionately hugged him. At this moment, silence was better than words. Cut. The soft sound of the door opening rang out. As if their pressure points had been pressed, their bodies stiffened and then their expressions greatly changed. "My mom is back. Hurry and put on your clothes." Seeing her flustered appearance, Tang Jing couldn't help but laugh. "Still laughing? It's all your fault. If she finds out, I won't let you off." "It's fine even if she finds out," Tang Jing said mischievously. "Be smart later. Don't let her find out." Yi Dingdang fiercely glared at him and warned. Feng Xinyang entered the house and found the bedroom door closed. She didn't disturb them and went into the kitchen to get busy. If she barged in, she would definitely see a scene not suitable for children. The two neatly dressed and walked out. Feng Xinyang didn't turn her head and said, "You two play for a while. I'll call you when I'm done cooking." "Aunt Feng, let me help you." "No need. You two go play. Spend more time with Dingdang." Tang Jing quietly whispered in Yi Dingdang's ear, "It seems your mom didn't find out." Yi Dingdang fiercely pinched him and said, "You're not allowed to say it." Tang Jing chuckled. He was happy and sweet. But time was short. In the evening he left the Ye family. Yi Dingdang reluctantly sent him downstairs and kissed him passionately before letting him go. Tang Jing didn't go home. His figure flashed and disappeared into the night. His eyes flashed with a biting cold killing intent. It was like he was a different person from before. "Xingfeng, if the government doesn't punish you, then I will personally take action and take revenge for Chief Su." This was the decision he made after leaving the courtyard house that represented power yesterday. If Xingfeng didn't die, he wouldn't be able to answer to Chief Su's spirit in heaven. Moreover, he knew that Xingfeng wouldn't leave the matter at that. Since that was the case, he might as well make the first move. This trip would definitely be dangerous. So he didn't even tell anyone about it. He was prepared to act alone. In the night he was like a ghost. He blended into the night and no one could detect him. The Dragon Group's base in Beijing wasn't in the city. Instead, it was in an air raid shelter in the suburbs. This air raid shelter was a product of the last century. It was specially built to prevent nuclear attacks. It was practically hollowed out. There wasn't anything strange from the outside, but it was a completely different world inside. This place was reused after the establishment of the Dragon Group. Furthermore, it had undergone complicated modifications. Su Yingtian had briefly introduced it to Tang Jing. That was why Tang Jing was able to find the place. However, when he saw the flawless base that was blended into the mountain, he couldn't help but frown. This was because he couldn't find a place to enter. This was simply an ordinary mountain. It wasn't eye-catching. There wasn't even a fence. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely treat this as a barren mountain. However, Tang Jing knew that there was a completely different world inside. "No, I must think of a way to enter." Suddenly, a beam of car light shot over from afar. Tang Jing quickly bent his waist and hid in the bushes. He watched as a car drove to the front of the mountain. Tang Jing's eyes lit up. The heavens were helping him. This was definitely a member of the dragon group. Then he could take this opportunity to sneak in. With a clear sound, the mountain slowly moved to both sides, revealing a huge door. The door rose and the car drove in. Tang Jing took the opportunity and rushed in like lightning. He directly laid down under the car's chassis and hid. The people in the car didn't see anything. The door closed again and the mountain returned to normal. Tang Jing felt that he was falling. Elevator. Tang Jing immediately understood. The base was not only in the mountain, but also underground. He had to use this elevator to enter. It was easy to defend and hard to attack. There was probably a camera in the elevator. If he didn't act fast enough, he wouldn't be able to fool the person behind the camera. His guess was right. Just now, there was only a shadow flashing on the screen. After that, everything returned to normal. The monitoring personnel didn't notice anything. Otherwise, the alarm would have gone off. Ding! The elevator stopped. The car started and drove out of the elevator. Tang Jing was like a gecko lying under the car's chassis. He glanced outside. He could vaguely see that the base was very big. It was like an underground city. The car drove into the garage. The sound of the door closing could be heard. Then, several people left together. Everything was quiet. Tang Jing confirmed that there was no one around. Then he quietly climbed out from under the car. Chapter 804. The underground parking lot was filled with cars, tanks, armored vehicles, and even helicopters. There was a dazzling array of vehicles, just like an arsenal. Maybe there are mechas here too, Tang Jing guessed. With his current cultivation, he was not afraid of mechas, and these weapons were not much of a threat to him. The most important thing now was to find Xing Feng. Dong dong. Footsteps were heard. He hurriedly hid and found a person walking over alone. He strode forward and chopped the person's neck with his hand. The person immediately fell down. He changed into the person's clothes, wiped his face, and used an illusion to change into the person's appearance. Then he swaggered out. Just now, he had used the soul-searching technique to grab enough information from the person's mind to know where Xing Feng's office was. But as for whether Xing Feng was in the base today, the person did not know. Tang Jing followed the map and quickly passed through layers of checkpoints and arrived at the core area. Suddenly, Tang Jing's pupils shrank as he saw a few behemoths, demon beasts. The demon beasts were locked in huge glass containers. Some were sleeping, some were struggling, and their bodies were connected with various wires. Tang Jing had once heard Kai Guibin mention that the success of the Super Soldier and Mecha project was due to the demon beasts. Because the demon beasts' inner cores provided enough energy, and the demon beasts' bodies and blood provided research materials for the transformation of super soldiers. In short, without these demon beasts, the dragon group would not be as powerful as it was today. Xing Feng is really amazing. He actually caught so many demon beasts from the 100,000 mountains. Tang Jing secretly praised. There was no way to go deep into the 100,000 mountains. Xing Feng spent a lot of effort to catch these demon beasts at the edge of the 100,000 mountains. Then, these demon beasts became Xiao Bai's mice. They could neither live nor die. Their bodies were thoroughly studied. After a simple glance, Tang Jing prepared to pass through this area. After passing through another checkpoint, he would reach Xing Feng's office. The pass card in Tang Jing's hand failed, and the red light of the entrance control lit up. Previously, his heart was unimpeded all because of this pass card. The sudden failure caught Tang Jing off guard. Which department are you from? Is this a place where you can come? A group of people immediately surrounded him and questioned him fiercely. The dragon group had a strict hierarchy, and the person that Tang Jing was impersonating was clearly not of a high enough level. He was so close, but there was nothing he could do. Tang Jing was unwilling to accept this. Seeing the suspicious looks in the eyes of this group of people, Tang Jing knew that it was useless to continue acting. He simply struck like lightning, and this group of people fell to the ground one after another. He casually picked up a person's pass, but he still couldn't swipe open the access control. The people in the distance had already seen the situation here, and they all rushed over while shouting. "We can't wait any longer. We can only use force." Tang Zheng pulled out Battle Soul, and with a move of transcendent flying immortal, the powerful and heavy Battle Soul fiercely chopped at the iron door. Pooh, like cutting tofu, the iron door was split into two halves. Tang Zheng dashed in with a tap of his toes. What greeted him was a super soldier. Da-da-da. Bullets were fired at an angle, directly greeting Tang Zheng. Ding ding ding. All the bullets hit the sacred armor shield. Tang Zheng held the sacred armor shield in one hand and Battle Soul in the other. He was invincible, and one by one, the super soldiers fell at his feet. "Tang Zheng, it's actually you." Tang Zheng had already recovered his true appearance. A thunderous shout rang out, and the Thunder King welcomed him. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, and he was overjoyed. The Thunder King was Xing Feng's #1 lackey, and since he was here, it was very likely that Xing Feng was here as well. His guess was not wrong. Xing Feng was indeed here. Ever since he found out that Tang Zheng was not dead, he had been on guard against Tang Zheng. He even moved back to the base from the city. After all, there were many people here and their equipment was complete, so they could better protect him. Who would have thought that by chance, this would fulfill Tang Zheng's wish? Otherwise, in such a big capital, it would not be easy for him to find Xing Feng. When he saw Tang Zheng barging in like a god of death, Xing Feng turned pale with fright. He thought to himself, how did he find this place? What guts! Even the government was temporarily not doing anything to him, but Tang Zheng actually dared to do the opposite, personally killing his way to his door. Xing Feng sighed at Tang Zheng's audacity. He was both furious and delighted. There's a path to heaven, but you refuse to take it and barge into hell. Since you've come to my territory, don't even think about escaping. Xing Feng swaggered to his feet and roared, "Kill him! Tear him into pieces!" A large group of super soldiers rushed in, surrounding Tang Zheng so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. This small space was already filled with people, and Tang Zheng could not escape even if he had wings. Xing Feng laughed coldly, pleased with himself, and hurriedly retreated far away. He crossed his arms, calmly watching the show. Tang Zheng locked onto Xing Feng from afar, and the stone in his heart fell to the ground. It seemed that he had made the right choice this time. However, if he wanted to get rid of Xing Feng, he would have to go through the Thunder King and the other super soldiers. Without a doubt, this would be a tough battle. The Thunder King was a second-grade grandmaster. Moreover, he had the help of so many super soldiers. He was full of confidence as he shouted, "Everyone, disperse. Let me deal with him." After saying that, he casually pointed his finger, and a burst of thunder exploded. Then, a thumb-sized bolt of lightning shot out from his finger, attacking Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's head trembled. The other party could actually shoot out lightning. No wonder he was called the Thunder King. The four heavenly kings really had their own strengths. In the future, their strength would probably be even stronger. In fact, in terms of ability to control lightning, the Thundercloud Beast was definitely above the Thunder King. It was a pity that the Thundercloud Beast was not here. Otherwise, they could have competed. Although the Thunder King's momentum was terrifying, Tang Zheng did not cower in the slightest. Seeing the lightning attack, he fiercely thrusted out his sword, and the lightning struck the War Soul sword. The lightning was like a maggot in a tarsal bone, following the sword blade to Tang Zheng's arm. Bang! A burst of green smoke rose. Half of Tang Zheng's sleeve was burned off, and his skin turned charred black. If he hadn't immediately used his true chi to stop the lightning, it would have flowed through his entire body, causing fatal damage to him. It seems that the War Spirit sword will be at a disadvantage against his lightning technique. Tang Zheng simply put away the War Spirit sword and dealt with the Thunder King with his bare hands. Seeing this, the Thunder King laughed complacently, "Tang Zheng, this is just the appetizer. The main course is still behind. Enjoy it." Tang Zheng curled his lips and said, "If you have any ability, then take it out. Otherwise, you won't have a chance in the future." The Thunder King coldly snorted and said with an ashen face, "Then let's see who dies and who dies." The Thunder King leaped into the air and flicked his finger. Crackling sounds rang out non-stop as 10 bolts of lightning descended from the sky. In an instant, they covered the lights in the room, as if they were scorching suns in the sky. The other super soldiers all retreated, afraid that they would be implicated. As the 10 bolts of lightning descended, Tang Jing raised the holy armor shield. The lightning struck the holy armor shield. The holy armor shield was a tortoise shell and didn't conduct electricity. Lightning flashed and gathered on the holy armor shield. Go! Tang Jing roared. His true chi fluctuated and directly shattered the lightning bolts, disappearing without a trace. Seeing this, the Thunder King's mouth twitched. He said coldly, "I don't believe that you can block all of them." After saying this, his hands grabbed at the air. Pa, pa, a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm gradually formed between his hands. The lightning flashed like a huge electric python, descending from the sky and pouncing toward Tang Jing. The lightning still landed on the holy armor shield. However, it really slithered like a python, instantly passing through the holy armor shield and flying toward Tang Jing's arm. This wasn't like the small lightning bolt from before. The power it contained was 100 times stronger. Tang Jing didn't dare to let it touch his body. He reacted quickly and used the sky-swallowing technique. A black hole immediately appeared in his palm, and a huge suction force directly sucked the lightning bolt into the black hole. Immediately, one end of the lightning bolt was in Tang Jing's palm, while the other end was in the Thunder King's palm. The two of them stared at each other from afar, glaring at each other furiously. What kind of technique is this? The Thunder King turned pale with fright. He had never seen such an ability before. Tang Jing breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the sky-swallowing technique was just right to deal with the Thunder King. Therefore, he walked toward the Thunder King step by step, shortening the distance between them. The two of them were still connected by that huge bolt of lightning. The huge suction force even spread out along the lightning bolt, reaching the Thunder King's palm. Quickly let go. The Thunder King knew that things weren't good. He wanted to immediately remove the lightning bolt, but he found that it was impossible. That suction force was connected to him, making it impossible for him to break free. Tang Jing also gradually realized this point and was overjoyed. The sky-swallowing technique was indeed amazing. It didn't disappoint him. Seeing Tang Jing approaching step by step, the Thunder King shouted in panic, "What are you guys still standing there for? Quickly stop him." The super warrior was very depressed. "Didn't you tell us not to make a move?" Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. However, no one dared to complain. All of them rushed toward Tang Jing, trying to surround him to rescue him. Seeing this, Tang Jing chuckled and let out a deep bellow. He waved his arm, causing the lightning bolt to move as well. The Thunder King also flew up. Like a meteor hammer, it swept toward the super warriors who were rushing toward him. Bang bang bang. Pava. The Thunder King crashed into the super warriors. The Thunder King cried out in pain, and the super warriors were all sent flying. The power of the lightning was even greater. Once it swept past the super warriors, they would be turned into charcoal. Their bodies would tremble, emitting black smoke, and they would fall to the ground, dead. Tang Jing was astonished. This Thunder King's lightning was indeed powerful. If he were to be hit by it, he wouldn't be in a good state either. Tang Jing quickly put me down. "I'm going to kill you." The Thunder King howled at the top of his lungs. This was really a great humiliation. To think that he was being used as a weapon to deal with his own people. Tang Jing chuckled and said, "You want to come down, right? Then I'll do as you wish." After saying that, he crazily circulated the sky-swallowing technique, and the lightning bolt was rapidly sucked into the black hole. The Thunder King was immediately pulled before Tang Jing. The Thunder King was already exhausted. His face was covered in blood, and it was unknown how many of his bones were broken. He grimaced in pain, looking like a demon. Chapter 805. Seeing the Thunder King being swallowed up by the black hole, not only were the others shocked, but even Tang Jing was extremely astonished. This was because the sky-devouring technique could only absorb inanimate objects in the past. It had never sacrificed a living being before. Why would the Thunder King be swallowed up by the black hole? Could it be the effect of the latter half of the sky-devouring technique? That must be it. Tang Jing nodded silently. After completing the sky-devouring technique, its might was even greater than before. If it could even absorb living beings, then its might would increase tremendously. What's going on? Yeah, why did the Thunder King disappear? Everyone started to discuss spiritedly. They subconsciously took a few steps back, increasing the distance between them and Tang Jing. They were deeply afraid that they would also be swallowed up by that black hole. Tang Jing looked up, but no one was looking at him. Where was Xing Feng? Suddenly, Tang Jing's eyes narrowed. He actually couldn't find Xing Feng's figure in the crowd. Damn it, he actually ran away. Tang Jing stomped his feet hatefully. Xing Feng must have taken advantage of the intense battle between him and the Thunder King to slip away. Scram! Tang Jing rushed into the crowd and roared. Many people subconsciously retreated, but there were still a few who tried to block him, but they were knocked far away. Without a leader, no one dared to block him. Tang Jing rushed out like a whirlwind, leaving behind a group of people staring at each other. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew over. He looked up and actually saw a sky full of stars. The mountain above him actually split down the middle, and a loud boom came from above. An airplane. Tang Jing locked onto the small dot in the sky with a single glance. It was actually an airplane. He didn't have time to marvel at the grand design of this base. He guessed that Xing Feng must have escaped by plane. This person's ability to escape was really top-notch. Escaping in the sea, he didn't even want his own base. He was fleeing in panic like a stray dog. This wasn't enough to satisfy Tang Jing. What he wanted was Xing Feng's life. Xiaobai, come out. Let's chase. He quickly summoned Xiaobai and sat on it. He soared into the air and gave chase. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Two silhouettes streaked across the sky like meteors. The speed of the plane was extremely fast. Xiaobai was naturally not slow, but it was not so easy to catch up in a short time. Xiaobai, we must catch up to him this time. Otherwise, if he hides, it won't be so easy to find him next time. Tang Jing patted Xiaobai's head and exhorted. Xiaobai squeaked and nodded. From dusk to dawn, the two sides circled in the air. The plane tried to shake off Tang Jing, but in the end, it found that it was all in vain. Xiaobai was quite energetic. Although he couldn't catch up with the plane for the time being, he could keep up with it from afar. There was no way to shake him off. Beep beep. Suddenly, Tang Jing's cell phone rang. It turned out to be a call without a number displayed. He was very surprised. This was his private phone number. Ordinary people would not have this number. Moreover, it was even stranger that there was no number displayed. However, he still answered the call. His body was in midair. The sound of the wind blew into the phone. He could only hear a dignified voice intermittently coming from the phone. This voice was very familiar. Tang Jing immediately recognized that it was the bureau chief. He was shocked. Why did the bureau chief call so early in the morning? Tang Jing, what are you doing? The bureau chief asked angrily. Tang Jing instantly guessed the purpose of the call, but pretended not to know and asked, Bureau chief, what do you mean? Tang Jing, where are you? I order you to immediately stop all your bad behavior. The bureau chief gave the order without hesitation. Tang Jing raised his eyebrows. He was not a soldier under the bureau chief. Why would he listen to his orders? Thus, he said in a neutral tone, Sorry, I still have something to do. Are you still chasing after Xing Feng? The bureau chief was angry. Tang Jing actually disobeyed the order. Tang Jing said straightforwardly, Since justice cannot be done, then I can only do it myself. You are ignoring the country's big picture. Tang Jing chuckled and said, Is the country's big picture protecting a villain like Xing Feng? Why would the country protect him? It's just that we won't touch him for the time being. The country has overall considerations. Tang Jing said lightly, Sorry, I'm not an official. I don't understand so many principles. I only understand that Xing Feng must die to avenge Chief Su and the others who died. You have no respect for discipline. The bureau chief said angrily. I am a free person. Your so-called discipline can't control me. You don't need to persuade me anymore, and don't need to order me righteously. It's useless. Goodbye. Tang Zheng hung up the phone. If other people knew that he dared to hang up on the bureau chief, they would definitely scold him for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and stared at the plane in front of him. He thought bitterly, your government doesn't do anything, but that doesn't mean that I don't care. If Xing Feng is allowed to continue, who knows how many more people will be harmed by him. Xing Feng sat in the plane with an ashen face. He looked at the surveillance camera from time to time. That familiar figure made him gnash his teeth in hatred. Damn that Tang Zheng. He actually rode that beast and chased after me. I can't shake him off no matter what. Fine, since it's like this, then let's go to the desert in the Great Northwest. I have a lot of troops there. They may not be Tang Zheng's opponent. Whoosh. The plane flew over the desert and headed straight for its destination. From afar, one could see the towering tree of life. Its branches and leaves covered the sky. The vast desert had completely changed. It had turned into an oasis of life with green trees and blooming flowers. It was exceptionally beautiful. Xing Feng also found it hard to believe when he saw this scene from the plane. Although his subordinates had reported the situation to him, seeing it with his own eyes was a different matter. He smacked his lips and stared at the tree of life. He muttered to himself, what kind of harvest will I get if I can crack the mystery of it? He couldn't imagine it. Suddenly his pupils shrank. He looked down from the sky and saw a slight fluctuation in the space around the tree of life. What's going on? He had an idea and immediately ordered his subordinates to check the source of the energy fluctuation. His men had been studying the tree of life for months. Not only did they find nothing, they couldn't even get close to the tree of life. Therefore, this abnormal fluctuation made him wild with joy as if he saw a glimmer of hope. Seeing that the pursuers had arrived, he hurriedly ordered the plane to land. This plane was the latest model. It could take off and land vertically. Therefore, even in the desert, it could take off and land smoothly. The plane landed smoothly. Xing Feng directly jumped off the plane and looked back. He found that Tang Zheng had also chased after him. Leader, we found that someone broke the restriction of the tree of life and sneaked in. A surprised voice came from the earpiece. Someone broke through the restriction? Xing Feng was startled. He was shocked. His men had spent countless manpower and resources but failed to do so. However, someone beat them to it. Yes, it's a woman. I didn't see her face clearly. Then, can we go in? Xing Feng asked anxiously. This was the question he was most concerned about. For the time being we can. Fortunately, Leader is wise and discovered it in time. Before the restriction is restored, we found a way to temporarily maintain the status quo. Now we can go in smoothly, but I don't know how long we can last. Xing Feng's heart moved. He hurriedly said, you must hold on. I'll go over immediately. He was ecstatic. This was really a help from the heavens. As soon as he came here, he found that he could break the restriction. This allowed him to get close to the tree of life. Maybe he could solve the mystery within. Although he was very curious about the woman who could break the restriction, he had so many people here. Therefore he was not worried. Even if the other party was an expert, he was confident that he could deal with her. He looked back at the approaching Tang Zheng and ordered, everyone listen to my order. Stop him at all costs. Kill him without mercy. Boom. Boom. 3 mechas broke out of the ground and rose into the air to meet Tang Zheng. Bush, bush, bush. Countless super soldiers also rose into the air. They had not seen Tang Zheng's power. Because they did not know, they were not afraid. Therefore, they aggressively attacked Tang Zheng. Xing Feng smiled complacently, then ran to the restrictive spell in a flash. When he saw the door with the restriction, his eyes almost turned red. He muttered excitedly, this time, I must solve the mystery of the tree of life. Many scientists had already rushed in with their equipment. Although there was not much progress in the past few months, they had been painstakingly researching and had gained a lot. Therefore, everyone was confident that they could solve the mystery of the tree of life. Xing Fengfei also rushed in, but before he could take a few steps, the door closed, and the others were locked out of the restriction. He still had a lingering fear. If he was a few steps later, he wouldn't have been able to enter. He saw Tang Jing from afar, who was already fighting with his subordinates. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smug smile. Tang Jing, when I solve the mystery of the Tree of Life, you will be insignificant. Tang Jing was furious. Xing Feng was too cunning. He had escaped all the way to the Tree of Life. Back then, the Dragon Group's headquarters was below. Later, more than half of it was destroyed by Lan Yu. Unexpectedly, it was not abandoned. Instead, a new base was built on the ruins. Obviously, the strength of this base was even stronger than before. Seeing the three mechs rushing over, he soared into the air and flew up from Xiao Bai's body, landing directly on top of a mech's head. Bang! A huge fist came crashing down, but Tang Jing suddenly jumped and dodged it. Then he waved the War Soul Sword and quickly descended. With a pew sound, the War Soul Sword pierced through the top of the mech's head. Immediately, the mech's body emitted sparks and black smoke. With a plop, it knelt on the ground. The ground seemed to tremble. Then, the mech fell to the ground with a loud bang. Tang Jing leaped up and jumped down, just in time to meet the group of super warriors who were rushing towards him. Waving his War Soul Sword, he fought with them. Without a doubt, Tang Jing's personal strength far surpassed these super warriors. They were not even comparable to the four heavenly kings, so how could they contend against Tang Jing? However, after all, there were many of them, so they were still able to hold back Tang Jing. The other two mechs also joined the battle. Chapter 806. Tang Jing saw Xing Feng running toward the Tree of Life from afar. Although the restriction could block people, it couldn't block vision, so Tang Jing saw everything clearly. His heart skipped a beat. How did Xing Feng get into the 6 Directions 8 Desolation Formation? The 6 Directions 8 Desolation Formation was an extremely powerful formation. Moreover, there were more than 60 pieces of heaven and earth mystic stones buried around the Tree of Life to provide energy for the formation. How could it be so easy to break through? I can't let him get close to the Tree of Life. Otherwise, the Tree of Life and the heaven and earth mystic stones below will be in danger. Tang Jing gritted his teeth and roared, "Xiao Bai, use your full power and attack." Xiao Bai shouted excitedly and immediately spat out flames. One of the mechas was immediately surrounded by raging flames, and crackling sounds came from all over its body. With one less mecha, the pressure on Tang Jing was greatly reduced. With the holy armor shield in one hand and the battle soul in the other, he was like a god, full of vigor as he quickly approached the Tree of Life. Xing Feng turned around and saw Tang Jing chasing after him. He was shocked. This brat's battle strength was too shocking. However, with that restriction guarding it, it wouldn't be easy for him to enter. His heart settled back into his stomach. However, in the next second, his jaw almost dropped to the ground. Bang! He saw Tang Jing press his hand on the restriction. The restriction rippled, and another door appeared out of thin air. Xing Feng fiercely slapped his head. Only then did he remember, wasn't the restriction set up by Tang Jing? Of course he had a way to enter. This was a miscalculation. Xing Feng didn't dare to stay. He rushed toward the Tree of Life, afraid that Tang Jing would catch up. "Xing Feng, stop right there!" Tang Jing roared. Xing Feng immediately ran even faster. Tang Jing had already passed through the restriction. Some of the pursuers also rushed in, but the huge mechas couldn't pass through that door. Tang Jing pointed at the restriction. The door immediately rippled and disappeared in an instant, returning to normal. The majority of the troops were blocked outside the 6 Directions 8 Desolation Formation. Tang Jing didn't have many super soldiers by his side. There was no need for Tang Jing to do anything. Xiao Bai directly turned them into people on fire. Tang Jing rushed to the foot of the Tree of Life, only to find that Xing Feng and the others had disappeared. He looked up and vaguely saw that these people had already climbed up the tree and were hiding in the middle of the Tree of Life. Shit! Don't destroy the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life had an important mission. Not only was it improving the air quality of the world and providing more abundant spiritual energy, but more importantly, it was secretly absorbing the energy of the Ghost Festival, turning the human world from a small world into a large world. That way, it could avoid destruction. This was a secret that no one else knew about. Therefore, Tang Zheng could not let anyone else discover this secret, and he could not let Xing Feng ruin this huge plan. Halt! Tang Zheng roared. Like a gecko, he pushed off the ground with the tip of his foot and quickly chased after them along the tree trunk. When Xing Feng saw the pursuing soldiers, he ordered loudly, "Stop him!" Bush, bush, bush. More than 10 super soldiers turned around and faced Tang Zheng, as if they weren't afraid of death. Tang Zheng's strength was much higher than theirs. So many people couldn't stop him just now, let alone these 10 small fries. With a flash of sword light, he raised his hand and swung his sword down. The dozen or so super soldiers fell off the tree one after another. The tree of life was too dense. In an instant, the figures of Xing Feng and the others disappeared. No one knew where they were hiding. Tang Zheng panicked, thinking that he had to find them as soon as possible. Therefore he moved through the tree of life. Xing Feng and the others hid under a branch. A piece of equipment had been installed. The scientists were frightened, but they were also excited as they fiddled with the equipment. They whispered, "We're ready." Xing Feng's eyes lit up. He couldn't hide his excitement as he urged, "Then what are you waiting for? Let's get started." The equipment was activated. A shiny drill came out of the equipment and nailed into the tree trunk. It fiercely drilled down. This equipment was specially made for the Tree of Life. In the past, their research on the Tree of Life had been stagnant. They couldn't even take out a part of the Tree of Life for research. The bark of the Tree of Life was too hard. It was impossible to penetrate. Recently, they finally developed a new material that was very hard. They were confident that they could break through the bark and enter the Tree of Life. They could extract the essence of the Tree of Life for research. The Tree of Life contains such a strong life force. The tree trunk must have an even stronger life force. The mysteries hidden in it might be solved after analysis. As expected, the drill rubbed against the bark for a while. A hole appeared in the bark, and the drill quickly drilled into the heart of the tree. A stream of juice emerged from the drill bit. This juice was incomparably fragrant, causing one to feel refreshed and refreshed. Spirit Array. Xing Feng trembled in excitement. He dipped his finger in the juice and licked it. Boom! His taste buds seemed to explode. An indescribable feeling instantly spread throughout his body. The exhaustion from running for his life disappeared and his body was filled with endless energy. This is too amazing. This juice must be the essence of the Tree of Life. The mysteries contained within are hard to estimate. He dipped his finger in the juice and placed it in his mouth. Immediately, he closed his eyes and felt like he was floating in the air. Could it be that I can become an immortal after drinking this? He excitedly thought. There's a result. The scientists cheered. They pointed at the equipment and said, "Our equipment integrates mining and analysis. We have roughly analyzed this juice. It contains all kinds of rich nutrients and is thousands of times better than any supplement in the world. Moreover, it can be directly consumed. It has countless benefits to the body. The life force it contains can even bring the dead back to life. It is like the legendary nectar." Nectar? Xing Feng was so excited that his eyes almost popped out. Could it be that after drinking it, I can become immortal? The legendary nectar of the gods did have this effect, but it was only a legend. No one had seen it with their own eyes. We can't be sure. With a cautious attitude, the scientists didn't dare to say anything. After all, this was beyond the scope of their knowledge, but there is no doubt that this is very beneficial to the human body. Quick! I want to extract more juice. Xing Feng rubbed his palms together. He couldn't wait to drink more juice. Immortality was a delicacy that countless people yearned for even in their dreams. Someone like Xing Feng, who was blinded by greed, was naturally no exception. The equipment started to operate. Little bits of juice were extracted from the Tree of Life and gathered in a small bottle. The liquid was transparent and exuded a mysterious fragrance. Before the bottle was full, Xing Feng couldn't wait to break it open and put it into his mouth. The others looked at him enviously. They also wanted to have a taste. They didn't know what it would taste like. Shwa! Suddenly, A sword light passed through the dense leaves and slashed at Xing Feng. Tang Jing appeared. He followed the fragrance and chased after them. He also heard their conversation and immediately realized the importance of this juice. How could he let Xing Feng succeed? He multitasked. While controlling the sword to attack Xing Feng, he kicked the equipment fiercely. With a clang, the equipment broke and fell down the tree. The scientists were powerless and didn't dare to stop Tang Jing. They all ran to the side, afraid that they would be implicated. Tang Jing saw the small hole in the tree trunk. The hole was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, it healed as if it had never been there. All of this happened very quickly. If not for Tang Jing's superior eyesight, he wouldn't have noticed. Tang Jing had seen the vampire's ability to heal wounds, but the Tree of Life's healing speed was faster. It was an eye-opener for him. He didn't have time to sigh as he focused on dealing with Xing Feng. The War Soul Sword chased after Xing Feng, leaving him no time to drink the juice in his hand. He was unable to restrain his anger and roared, "Tang Jing, you're really haunting me. I'll cut you into 10,000 pieces." Tang Jing disdainfully said, "Now that you don't have your lackeys to help you, let's see how you'll escape. Obediently accept your death." "In your dreams." Xing Feng flew into a rage. Tang Jing was too lazy to waste words with him. He leaped up and grabbed the War Soul Sword. Then he increased the power of his attack, causing Xing Feng to be in danger. His body was already covered with many wounds and blood flowed out. Xing Feng tried to drink the juice several times, but in the end he was unable to succeed. Tang Jing had been staring at the bottle of juice the entire time, and with another swift and fierce sword move, he forced the opponent into a dead end, making it impossible for him to dodge. With a stretch of his hand, he snatched the bottle from the opponent's hand. "Give it back to me." Xing Feng let out a heart-wrenching roar as if he had gone mad. He actually risked being stabbed by the War Soul Sword and narrowly escaped death. Tang Jing glanced at the juice. The fragrance assailed his nostrils, making him feel refreshed. He didn't consume it immediately. The juice from the Tree of Life must have many mysteries. He wouldn't drink it so impatiently. With a flash of light on his wrist, the bottle was put away into Sumeru world. Seeing this, Xing Feng's eyes were about to explode. His eyes were about to spit fire. "I'm going to kill you. You're going to die without a burial ground." Xing Feng roared. He took out a needle and stabbed it into his heart. Did he want to commit suicide? Tang Jing was confused. He watched as Xing Feng's expression became more and more ferocious, like a beast that wanted to eat people. Xing Feng suddenly faced the sky and let out a heart-wrenching roar. His body rapidly expanded. "What's going on?" Tang Jing looked at Xing Feng with a strange expression. His heart moved. He immediately guessed that the thing that was injected into his body must have taken effect. He actually transformed. He just didn't know what it was that could cause such a change. Chapter 807. Seeing that Battle Soul was about to pierce Xing Feng, the muscles on Xing Feng's body swelled up, tearing through his clothes and growing a lot of hair. 2 horns grew out of his head and his cheeks became extremely sinister. He no longer looked like a human but more like a beast. Battle Soul pierced into his skin but was unable to penetrate deeply. Then it was slapped back. Tang Jing looked at the other party in shock and said, "What did you inject into yourself?" "Gee." Xing Feng's laughter was sharp and strange. His pupils emitted a dim light as he said proudly, "This is the genetic medicine that our dragon group recently developed. This is the combination of human and demon genes. It is a great invention, but it has not been put into practice yet. Today, I will let you witness the performance of this medicine." Genetic medicine. Tang Jing's eyelids twitched. He knew that super soldiers were the result of genetic modification, which was why they could be modified in batches. Obviously, the genetic medicine that Xing Feng injected this time was even more powerful. It had almost turned him from a human into a beast, and his strength had greatly increased. Tang Jing died. "After you die, I will extract all of the sap from the Tree of Life. After consuming it, I will become even stronger. I will become the ruler of this world. Who cares if it's the leader, Huaxia, or the Atlantic Empire? I will make all of them submit to me and listen to my orders. If they dare to disobey, then they will die. Xing Feng said crazily. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. Xing Feng's ambition was so great that he did not put the country in his eyes and even wanted to take the whole world for himself. Crazy. Too crazy. If he was allowed to escape today and create more super soldiers like him, then the world would be in chaos even without the demon race. Tang Zheng could not help but rejoice. If he followed the official rules and waited for a period of time to deal with Xing Feng, then he would have already made preparations. Who knows how many super soldiers he would create? How could the country deal with him then? Wishful thinking. Tang Jing shouted and once again attacked with his sword. Xing Feng's strength had increased greatly, and he was not at a disadvantage. A pair of sharp claws clashed with the battle soul, creating sparks. Tang Zheng's heart gradually sank. A single dose of genetic medicine could make an ordinary martial artist so powerful. The other party had at least reached the third level of the supreme power realm. This was too heaven-defying. Even though Tang Zheng's cultivation speed was extremely fast, he had never heard of such a terrifying thing. This was the power of technology. He was afraid that the demon race would have a headache facing such a situation. However, Xing Feng was no longer a normal human being. He had turned into a wild beast. His threat to humans was no less than that of demons. The two of them were locked in battle as they slowly flew towards the top of the tree. Although Xiaobai was strong, he was not of much use at the moment. This was because the Tree of Life might be in danger if it spat out flames, and Tang Jing definitely wouldn't take this risk. A moment later, the two of them arrived at the top of the Tree of Life. They were already several hundred meters in the air. The battle soul had opened many wounds on Xing Feng's body, but there were no fatal injuries. Therefore, although he was only at the third level of the supreme power realm, his skin was thick and his resistance to attacks was strong. Therefore, his strength was far beyond the third level of the supreme power realm. This was why he was able to compete with Tang Zheng. Whoosh whoosh. The two of them passed through the last layer of branches and leaves and flew up to the top of the tree. The scene in front of them suddenly became very open. However, both of them were attracted by another figure. A woman in a Taoist robe stood on the top of the tree with her eyes closed in deep thought, as if the two of them didn't exist. Yan Qingyi. Tang Zheng was shocked. He didn't expect her to really come to the Tree of Life. Xing Feng finally remembered the figure he saw on the plain who broke through the restriction. At such a close distance, he finally recognized the other party. Yan Qingyi, it's actually you. Xing Feng's ear-piercing voice rang out as he pointed at Yan Qingyi. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Yan Qingyi turned a deaf ear to him and didn't even bat an eyelid. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Xing Feng must be using a prophecy. Furthermore, Xing Feng had specially come to the Tree of Life from the capital in an attempt to help the prophecy. Seeing that she was in a daze, Tang Jing didn't dare to let Xing Feng disturb her too much. Thus, he tapped the tip of his foot, and the branch under his feet bent like a fully drawn bow and shot at Xing Feng. Xing Feng curled his lips in disdain and attacked again. The heavenly flying immortal sword technique focused on elegance and ease, as if an immortal had descended to the mortal world. On the other hand, Xing Feng was a big guy who focused on strength and accuracy. Therefore, the two's fighting styles were very different. Seeing that it was difficult to determine the winner, Tang Jing put away the battle soul and took out the true heaven bow and shooting sun arrows. Xing Feng had seen the power of this divine armament before, and his face suddenly changed as he said, "You actually still have this kind of arrow. I didn't use it all for you in the ocean back then." Tang Jing snorted. Back then, when he was dealing with the demon clan, he had lost the shooting sun arrows, which made him feel extremely regretful. After dozens of days, wanting to find them back was like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's a pity that this kind of divine weapon is in your hands. As long as I can snatch that bow, I can create even more divine weapons. Xing Feng said in high spirits. Huh, you still want to copy my heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows? You are truly delusional. Really? Let me tell you, your shooting sun arrows are in my hands. I have already sent people to study them. Do you really think that with how advanced technology is now, You really can't create a similarly powerful one? Xing Feng asked in ridicule. Tang Zheng was shocked and said, "My shooting sun arrows are in your hands?" "Of course, back then I spent a lot of effort to fish them out from the sea," Xing Feng said complacently. However, Tang Zheng was extremely excited. He originally thought that he had lost the shooting sun arrows forever, but he never thought that he would regain it. Immediately, he looked at Xing Feng as if he had seen his prey, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. Without a doubt, it was impossible to force him to reveal the whereabouts of the shooting sun arrows. The only way was to use the soul-searching technique. Moreover, there were definitely many secrets in his mind, so he couldn't miss this opportunity. Therefore, Tang Zheng couldn't kill him directly with one strike. He needed to control him first so that he could use the soul-searching technique. Of course, Xing Feng didn't just have so many ideas in Tang Zheng's mind, he was still immersed in joy. Of course, he also knew that Tang Zheng was a difficult person to deal with. However, when he saw Yan Qingyi, who had his eyes tightly closed, his heart moved. Since the Yan family and Tang Zheng were so close, why not kill Yan Qingyi first and let the world know the consequences of going against him? Bang! He stomped heavily on the treetop and leaped forward, pouncing towards Yan Qingyi. His sharp claws gleamed with a cold light. Yan Qingyi, who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, would be torn into pieces if he were to be struck by those claws. Tang Zheng understood this very well, and hurriedly shouted, "Yan Qingyi, be careful." Yan Qingyi was indifferent and didn't open her eyes. She was like an old monk in meditation, and external things couldn't wake her at all. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Run!" At the same time, Xing Feng's attack was already in front of Yan Qingyi. Tang Zheng wanted to save her, but he was half a beat too late. Xing Feng was immensely complacent. At such a close distance, he was determined to win. As long as he killed Yan Qingyi, the world wouldn't dare to go against him. Suddenly, Xing Feng's expression changed greatly as he looked at Yan Qingyi in disbelief, because his attack actually missed at the last moment. Yan Qingyi closed her eyes, and with a slight movement of her feet, her body moved a small step to the side and easily avoided his attack. Moreover, her eyes were still closed. This kind of exquisite dodging action he had never seen before. Moreover, Yan Qingyi didn't have any martial arts skills. Lucky she must be lucky. I can't be scared by her. Xing Feng took a deep breath and secretly comforted himself. He immediately changed his attack route and attacked Yan Qingyi's vital points. Like drawing a ladle, Yan Qingyi once again dodged the attack as if he was drawing a ladle. Xing Feng was dumbstruck. The first time was a coincidence, but the second time was definitely not a coincidence. What was going on? He was sure that Yan Qingyi's body did not have any energy fluctuations. He was not a martial artist, nor was he a cultivator. This was a well-known fact, but how could she easily avoid his attack? Tang Zheng couldn't help but be astonished. Yan Qingyi's reaction was too dazzling, and he couldn't help but gasp in admiration. Xing Feng's double attack missed, and he wanted to continue attacking, but Tang Zheng had already appeared behind him. With a "so" sound, the shooting sun arrow shot out and went straight for his back. "Ho!" Xing Feng unwillingly roared and jumped up, attempting to escape. But Yan Qingyi actually stretched out her hand and grabbed his leg. He subconsciously stopped and looked down. Poof! The shooting sun arrow fiercely shot into his waist, and blood splattered. He cried out in pain. He originally had the chance to snatch the shooting sun arrow, but Yan Qingyi's timely move caused his movements to suddenly stop, and then he took the arrow. This scene caused him to be puzzled. He was both angry and frightened, because all of this was strange, as if Yan Qingyi could predict his actions in advance, as if everything was under her control. This made Xing Feng very uneasy, and he only wanted to get away from Yan Qingyi. The feeling she gave him was even more terrifying than Tang Zheng. He punched towards Yan Qingyi, but Yan Qingyi slightly tilted her body, dodged, and released her hand. Xing Feng finally escaped, and without caring about the pain, he tried to escape. But Tang Zheng had already blocked his path, and the other shooting sun arrow shot into his left chest at lightning speed. The two shooting sun arrows from the front and back caused him to abruptly stop running, and with a put-on sound he fell onto the treetop. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp, and his hands were fast. The War Soul sword immediately pressed against his head, and shouted, "Don't move!" Xing Feng grimaced and angrily said, "Tang Zheng, I am not willing to fall into your hands." Tang Zheng coldly laughed and said, "The winner is the king, the loser is the thief. So what if you are not willing? You have done many evil deeds, and today is the day you die. All of this is wrong. It's all because of her that I fell into your hands." Xing Feng pointed at Yan Qingyi, puzzled. Chapter 808. Yan Qingyi slightly nodded towards Tang Zheng, then looked at Xing Feng expressionlessly and said, "The reason why you are here today is not because of others, but because you brought it upon yourself. Your ambition has harmed you." Xing Feng's face stiffened as he roared, "Stinking woman, what do you know?" Yan Qingyi shook her head. "You still refuse to realize your mistake. Your fate is already sealed. Your life has already come to an end. You dare to kill me?" Xing Feng was shocked. Yan Qingyi was silent. Tang Zheng jokingly laughed. "If I didn't want to kill you, why would I spend so much effort to chase you here? The country will not let you go. Is that so? Hee hee, I don't think so. The country may not fully understand your actions. As long as they understand your ambition, then you really deserve to die." Xing Feng's eyes rolled as he tried to escape. However, he found that there were sun-shooting arrows in front of him and War Soul sword on his head. There was nowhere to run. "Tang Zheng, don't you want your arrow? If you let me go, I will return it to you. Otherwise, you will never find it." Xing Feng threatened. "There is no need for you to speak." With that, Tang Zheng grabbed his head and used the soul-searching technique. "Let go of me. Let go of me. What are you doing?" Xing Feng screamed at the top of his lungs. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him. Countless complex information flashed through his mind, revealing all his secrets. Xing Feng's screams finally stopped. Even his body had changed. His body was rapidly shrinking and his cheeks had returned to human form. However, his face was full of wrinkles as if he had aged 30 years in an instant. Moreover, the lush hair did not disappear. Side effects. Tang Zheng immediately came to the conclusion. The genetic medicine that Xing Feng had taken had many side effects. Although it could temporarily increase his fighting strength, the damage to his body was too great. At this moment, after the effects of the medicine had passed, he had become neither human nor ghost. It was especially terrifying. His eyes had lost their luster and he was still muttering, "I am the most powerful person in the world. I am the #1 in the world. Everyone has to listen to me." Tang Zheng shook his head. He had completely lost himself. Tang Zheng let go of his hand. The wrinkles on Xing Feng's face grew more and more, and they quickly spread to the rest of his body. A gust of wind blew past, and the leaves rustled. The wrinkles also sounded, and they started to crack. The vitality in Xing Feng's eyes was completely cut off. His body also cracked rapidly like a broken porcelain. In the end, with a cracking sound, he turned into bits that filled the sky and dissipated with the wind. Tang Zheng looked at this scene in shock. This definitely wasn't the effect of the soul search technique, but the side effect of the genetic medicine that had caused Xing Feng's death. Tang Zheng did not pity him at all and coldly said, "You reap what you sow, you only have yourself to blame." Yan Qingyi didn't seem to be surprised at all. Her eyes were incomparably indifferent, as if she had already known this would happen. "Seeing it with my own eyes is more realistic than my predictions," Yan Qingyi said lightly. Tang Zheng's heart stirred. He asked, "You predicted his death?" Yan Qingyi nodded. "Just now, I was standing on top of the tree. When I closed my eyes, I saw this scene. Everything was predestined. He can't escape." Tang Zheng came to a sudden realization. No wonder she was so indifferent. Could it be that you also predicted his attack just now? Ever since I stood on top of the tree, the power of my prophecy technique has greatly increased. Not only can I predict the future, but I can also predict what will happen next. As such, I can accurately dodge his attack. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. This was the power of prophecy technique. Not only could it predict the future, but it could also predict what would happen in the next second. With this kind of foresight, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens for Xing Feng to attack her. After all, she could take the initiative to dodge, causing her opponent's attack to miss. Tang Zheng imagined that if he had this ability, then wouldn't he be heaven-defying in battle? Perhaps even people several levels higher than him might not be his match. Immediately, he couldn't help but look at Yan Qingyi in a new light. He gave her a thumbs up and sincerely praised, "You really are too amazing." Yan Qingyi said with a bit of disappointment, "This ability can only be achieved by standing on top of the tree and connecting with the aura of the tree of life." "Is that so?" Tang Zheng was greatly disappointed. "How can everything in this world go according to one's wishes? This time I have already gained a lot. It turns out that the tree of life really can promote the use of prophecy technique. I have been working here for so long, but I still didn't discover this secret." Yan Qingyi said with regret. "The tree of life can actually help your prophecy technique?" Tang Zheng was overjoyed. "Then did you predict the specific situation of the end of the world?" Yan Qingyi nodded. "There were a few more fragments. It turns out that when the demon race gathered at the snowy mountain, their original intention was not to besiege you, but to escape from this world. You seem to be preventing them from escaping from this world." Tang Zheng was greatly shocked. This was too different from the prophecy she had said before. Yan Qingyi also clearly understood this point. She said with some embarrassment, "My previous prophecy technique saw too few scenes, so my speculations may have been a bit off." Tang Zheng nodded and said, "Since you said that the demon race was escaping from this world, then why? Could it be because of the scene of the end of the world that you saw?" Yan Qingyi nodded. "Some of the scenes that I saw this time did indicate that the end of the world had arrived. The scene of the end of the world was even more terrifying than what I said last time. I guess that the demon race definitely knew that this world was going to end, so they wanted to escape. Moreover, they wanted to climb the stone stairs behind you." Tang Zheng suddenly understood. The creation of the world was successful, so the demon race definitely wanted to use the heaven stairway to escape from this world. Didn't that mean that they had returned to the sky beyond heaven? The demon race racked their brains to return to the human world, but they wanted to go back to the sky beyond heaven. All their efforts were for naught. It seems that I am preventing them from returning to the sky beyond heaven. Actually, that's right. The demon race is the root of the problem. If they return to the sky beyond heaven, they will definitely stir up trouble again. It's better to stay in this world and perish together with this world." Tang Zheng thought silently. But there seemed to be something extremely terrifying at the end of the stone stairs. It made the demon race shrink back, and instead, they fled. Yan Qingyi added. Tang Zheng's head thumped, and he asked, "What is at the end of the stone stairs? Did you see it this time?" Yan Qingyi shook her head regretfully. "It was too blurry, I couldn't see it clearly. But I saw something else." "What?" "The tree of life shone brilliantly, and then, the world returned to peace. The scene of the end of the world completely disappeared." Yan Qingyi couldn't help but look at the tree of life below her feet and say. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, and said, "So, in the end, the thing that restored the world to its original state was the tree of life. And if it wasn't me, then I am not the savior?" This. Yan Qingyi hesitated, not knowing how to answer. In the past, she had solemnly declared that Tang Zheng was the savior, but now it seemed that it was all a misunderstanding. The thing that saved the world was actually the tree of life, which meant that there was no savior at all. Tang Zheng smiled as if relieved of a burden. He didn't want to be the savior in the first place, and since it was all a misunderstanding, he felt relieved. Yan Qingyi looked at Tang Zheng awkwardly and said, "Although I can't confirm the savior point, you resisted the demon race with your own strength, so you are still the hero of this world." Tang Zheng didn't deny it and said, "I don't care whether I am a hero or not, as long as this world isn't destroyed." "But, did you predict what would cause the end of the world?" Yan Qingyi shook her head guiltily. "I didn't predict it. There were too many uncertain factors during the end of the world, so Tang Zheng didn't think too much about it. because any deviation could lead to wrong conclusions, such as saying that he was the savior. Tang Zheng, don't be sad, maybe I didn't see enough, you are still the savior, because in the unseen world, I feel that you are extremely important to this world. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said, there's no need to say any more, I don't want to be the savior. However, since the tree of life can make your prophecy more accurate, then if you stay here, won't you be able to predict more things? No, only after I comprehend more Daos will my prophecy be able to improve even more. Then, with the help of the tree of life, I will be able to predict even more. So, staying here is useless. Tang Zheng felt regretful and said, so that's how it is, then let's leave this place. Come to my war soul sword, let's go down the tree first. Yan Qingyi stood on the war soul sword. In order to ensure her safety, Tang Zheng hugged her waist from behind, and through the robe he could still clearly feel the astonishing elasticity inside. Yan Qingyi lowered her head and looked, only to see a few hundred meters in the air, causing her to feel dizzy. Close your eyes or look forward, don't look down. Tang Zheng warned. Yan Qingyi took a deep breath and looked forward. At this height of a few hundred meters, the scenery was exceptionally beautiful. The scenery of the sky and the earth could be seen, especially the desert in the distance. It was exceptionally beautiful under the sunlight, causing one to feel relaxed and happy. The War Soul Sword landed steadily on the ground. The two of them jumped off the War Soul Sword, only to discover that there were people standing both inside and outside the restriction. The few scientists who had escaped were anxiously sticking to the restriction, and when they saw Tang Zheng and Yan Qingyi, they were so scared that their faces turned pale, their legs went soft, and they sat down on the ground. Outside the restriction, there were many super warriors. However, their expressions were no longer as fierce as before. Instead, they looked at Tang Zheng with fear in their eyes. This was because they had already seen the scene on the treetop from afar. Their leader had died. Without a leader, although these people's fighting strength was not bad, they had already become jackals of the same tribe and were nothing to worry about. Tang Zheng walked to the edge of the restriction and pressed down on it. Ripples spread out and the door appeared again, but no one dared to cross the line and barge in. Chapter 809. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng in shock. Tang Zheng indifferently swept his eyes over the crowd, causing them to continuously retreat, their faces turning pale with fright. Xing Feng is already dead. If you dare to help the tiger and commit crimes, then Xing Feng will be your end. Scram. A loud and clear shout caused people's hearts to tremble. No one dared to resist as they all retreated. Without a leader, they became a motley crew. The few scientists trembled as they exited the barrier. Tang Zheng waved his hand and the barrier returned to normal. No one was able to pass through this barrier. Come to my sword. I will escort you back to the capital. Tang Zheng invited. Looking at the thin war spirit sword, Yan Qingyi hesitated for a moment, but still stood on it. Although men and women were not clear, moreover, she was a monk. It was not good for her to be hugged by Tang Zheng like this. But she had no choice. If she wanted to leave the desert, flying was the best way. The two of them stepped on the flying sword and left the desert, returning to the capital. The air in the capital was filled with a chilling aura, causing people's hearts to involuntarily tighten. Yan Qingyi's brows trembled as she asked, "What happened?" Tang Zheng indifferently said, "I'm afraid this has something to do with my actions these past few days." Yan Qingyi worriedly said, "Xing Feng is after all an official. If you kill him like this, how will you explain it to the officials?" Tang Zheng did not mind and said, "I have my own plans. I'd like to hear the details." Yan Qingyi looked at him with a burning gaze. Xing Feng is a wolf with wild ambitions. He actually had evil intentions and wanted to rebel. This is a serious crime. I have already obtained all the information and presented it to the officials. They will naturally know what is more important. Tang Zheng said confidently. Rebel? Yan Qingyi was shocked. Xing Feng's guts are actually this big. His guts are indeed not small. Normal people wouldn't even dare to imagine such a thing. But he controls such a powerful force like the Dragon Group, which is why he has second thoughts. Power is a very harmful thing. Tang Jing sighed. Yan Qingyi's hanging heart finally settled back into his stomach. He nodded in relief and said, "That's for the best. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. There is no need to put yourself in danger because of Xing Feng." Tang Jing smiled noncommittally. In fact, sometimes it was inevitable to take risks in order to achieve a goal. This time he was taking a risk. However, the final result was still not too bad. He had obtained too much useful information from Xing Feng's mind, and there was no lack of dark histories of some big shots. However, what attracted him the most was Xing Feng's plan. Xing Feng was actually blinded by greed. His ego was inflated and he wanted to rebel. He wasn't just thinking about it. He was already putting it into practice. Under the guise of the Dragon Group, Xing Feng's true actions were concealed. He had actually secretly created quite a number of mechas and trained many men of sacrifice. These men of sacrifice only listened to his orders. Furthermore, he even had spies in the inner palace. As long as the time was right, the loyalists would assassinate the country's leaders. Then he would usurp the throne and replace it. Tang Jing couldn't help but admire Xing Feng's madness. As long as the government knew of his plot, he would definitely die. It was like dancing on a steel wire. Tang Jing already had all this solid evidence in his hands. As long as the government saw this, they would definitely not pursue his actions. He had accidentally gotten rid of such a hidden danger. The government should be secretly happy. As for the dirty deeds of those high-ranking officials, Tang Jing would show them all. These social parasites held high positions and squeezed the wealth of the people. This was the greatest damage and blasphemy to the country. Seeing that Tang Jing had already thought of a way out, Yan Qingyi knew that she was worrying too much. Thus, she bid farewell and left. Tang Jing wasn't in a hurry to go home. Instead, he went to the Dragon Group's base in the outskirts. He saw that the originally deserted base was surrounded by layers upon layers of countless soldiers. Tang Jing's head thumped. Could it be that such a large number of soldiers were guarding the base because he had caused a ruckus in the base? However, these people couldn't stop him. He quietly went down to the base. However, he found that the base was bustling with activity. All kinds of equipment and resources were being packed and evacuated. He ignored them and ran straight to his destination. After a while, he came to a hidden wall. He stretched out his hand and a row of boxes popped out from the wall. He was delighted. This was the information he had obtained from the soul-searching technique. The shooting sun arrows that the Dragon Group had salvaged were hidden here. That was why he had snuck into the base. It's empty? Suddenly, he saw that the cabinet was empty. The items were nowhere to be found. He was shocked. He flew into a rage. "Where are my shooting sun arrows?" "Your shooting sun arrows have been taken away." A gloomy voice came from behind him. Tang Jing was shocked. There was actually someone who had silently appeared behind him, but he was completely unaware of it, which meant that the other party's power was not ordinary. He suddenly turned around and saw an ordinary person. He had a normal face and eyes without any sharpness. If this person was thrown into a crowd, no one would notice him. He was too ordinary. However, Tang Jing didn't dare to be careless. This was because the other party could silently stand 3 meters behind him. Just based on this point, Tang Jing didn't dare to underestimate him. "Who are you?" Number 2. Number 2? Tang Jing had never heard of this name. He couldn't help but be surprised. "A name is just a code." Number 2 said indifferently. "You said that the shooting sun arrows have been taken away. Where are they now?" Tang Jing asked. "The leader wants to see you." Number 2 said without answering the question. Tang Jing's eyelids jumped. "You are an expert from the inner palace?" Number 2 didn't say anything. He turned around and left. Tang Jing was sure that the other party was an expert from the inner palace. Previously, when he was in the inner palace, he sensed several powerful auras. This person was probably one of them. At that time, Number 2's aura was fully released. Therefore, he could easily sense the other party's presence. The other party also used this aura to intimidate people so that they didn't dare to act rashly. At this time, Number 2 left the inner palace. His aura was completely hidden. He was no different from an ordinary person. Seeing that the other party didn't want to say more, Tang Jing quickly followed him. The shooting sun arrows must have fallen into the hands of the leader. Moreover, he sent people to wait here. That means that he knew that Tang Jing would definitely appear here. As expected of the leader, his plan was flawless. Since he summoned him, Tang Jing naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, he still had to tell the other party about Xing Feng's scheme. After a few minutes, Tang Jing once again arrived at the mysterious courtyard. Two powerful auras were firmly locked onto him. He was sure that there were two other experts here. They were eyeing him with hostility. Therefore, they didn't hesitate to release their auras to intimidate Tang Jing. It was as if they were telling him not to act rashly. Tang Jing's various actions had made these people feel like they were facing a great enemy. They classified him as an unstable factor and must be fully on guard against him. Tang Jing was magnanimous and didn't care at all. He followed number 2 into the leader's study. In his heart, he was speculating about how many experts were hidden in the inner palace. The great families had always thought highly of themselves. Many of them were arrogant and didn't even put the government in their eyes. Now, it seemed that they weren't so optimistic. The government had been accumulating for so many years and had a deep foundation. They weren't any weaker than the great families. With this new understanding, Tang Jing had to reevaluate the government. They had always shown weakness to the outside world and deceived many people. This state of showing weakness to the enemy was bound to change and restore the country's prestige and dignity. In this process, someone was bound to suffer. It was just that he didn't know who it would be. Number 2 brought Tang Jing in and then respectfully retreated, closing the door behind him. Tang Jing looked up and saw the leader standing in front of the window. He was silent as he looked at the clouds in the sky. "Leader, why did you summon me?" Tang Jing asked straightforwardly. The leader slowly turned around and opened a box on the table. A few shooting sun arrows lay quietly inside. Tang Jing's eyelids twitched. These were all the shooting sun arrows he had prepared for the ceremony. They had all fallen into the hands of the leader. The leader tapped the wooden box a few times and said, "You have done many shocking things during this period of time. What are your thoughts? Let's talk about it." "Good kill." Tang Jing thought for a while and simply spat out 3 words. The leader raised his thick eyebrows, clearly unhappy. He said coldly, "You killed someone and yet you dare to say it's good. Where is the law?" "The law protects good people, not evil people. In my opinion, if evil people don't die, more good people will be hurt." Twisting words and forcing logic. Is it up to you to decide whether someone is a bad person or not? The leader slammed the table and asked angrily. Tang Jing didn't change his expression and said lightly, "It's not up to me. It's up to a righteous heart. Xing Feng's actions, as long as it's a righteous person, they can naturally judge whether he's good or bad." Seeing that Tang Jing didn't listen to him, the leader got even angrier. Even now, he still didn't repent and was full of sophistry, challenging his nerves. Tang Jing acted as if he didn't see the leader's reaction and said directly, "Listen to me for a while. You can also judge whether Xing Feng is good or bad." Without waiting for the leader to reply, Tang Jing directly talked about Xing Feng's schemes. He even mentioned the place where he trained his men of sacrifice and hid his mechas. The leader's expression gradually changed. His anger seemed to be about to rush out of his head. After listening to Tang Jing, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He slammed the table and roared angrily, "Death can't wipe out his crimes. Death can't wipe out his crimes." Tang Jing's lips unknowingly curled up into a smile. He looked at the leader with a half-smile. The leader ignored his mocking expression and asked, "Is all of this true? Don't you already have an answer in your heart?" Tang Jing shrugged and said, Indeed, the leader already had an answer in his heart. These things couldn't be fabricated. He just needed to check to know whether it was true or false. Tang Jing wouldn't be so stupid as to use this kind of thing to deceive him. Chapter 8:10. Tang Jing looked at the bureau chief quietly and added, Xing Feng's actions are not only limited to this, he also has an unclear relationship with the Atlantic Empire's Rockefeller family. The bureau chief's face was ashen, his hands clenched into fists, his veins popping out. With so many crimes, Xing Feng could already be judged to be an extremely evil person. To think that he actually trusted him and even handed over the National Security Bureau and Dragon Group to him. If it wasn't for Tang Jing stopping him in time, the consequences would be too late for him to regret. He looked deeply at Tang Jing with a complicated expression. He pushed the shooting sun arrow forward and said, "Even though Xing Feng has committed a heinous crime, your actions have no sense of discipline at all. If there is a next time, I will not sit by and do nothing. There will be no next time." Hearing this, Tang Jing smiled confidently. This was the outcome he had expected. He kept the shooting sun arrow and said, "Thank you. Calm down from now on." The bureau chief warned. "I have never been a person who likes to stir up trouble." "Is that so? Then what is going on between you and the Song family?" "This is the capital. Stability is the overall situation. I don't want to see a chaotic situation." Tang Jing said calmly, "The Song family is different from others. They are already my enemy. If I don't retaliate, then they will kill me. There are no irreconcilable conflicts in this world. As long as both sides sit together and negotiate, there will always be a solution." The bureau chief said earnestly. Tang Jing said disapprovingly, "That may not be so. The Song family has long wanted to kill me. If I let them go, then won't others do the same? Anyway, if I do nothing even if they find out, then won't I become a living target for many people?" The bureau chief's expression was serious. He said sternly, "Then you don't agree? Forgive me for not being able to comply." Tang Jing cupped his hands and said resolutely. The bureau chief stared at him, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. A suppressed anger shrouded Tang Jing's head, as if it could pour down at any time. Tang Jing's expression was calm, as if nothing had happened. After a long while, the bureau chief finally let out a long sigh and said, "What I want is the stability and unity of this society, not a state of disunity. So, that's all I have to say. Take care of yourself." Tang Jing's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that the bureau chief had compromised and did not pursue the matter of the Song family. The Song family was too powerful and had many restrictions on the government, making it impossible to implement the decree. This was the power of a big family. Not only could they influence individuals, but they could also influence the policies of a country. Sometimes, the country would have a headache, so they both loved and hated these big families. "If there's nothing else, then I'll take my leave," Tang Jing said. The bureau chief waved his hand. Tang Jing turned around and left the courtyard. The three of them entered and respectfully stopped in front of the bureau chief. The bureau chief looked up at them and said, "What is your impression of Tang Jing?" Number 2 was among the three of them. One of them was an old man in a green robe, and the other was younger than number 2. The three of them had restrained their aura, but their serious expressions were the same, making one's heart tremble. Among them, the old man was number 1, and the other was number 3. They were the 3 experts in charge of protecting the bureau chief. Hearing the bureau chief's question, number 1 bowed slightly and said, "Reporting to the bureau chief, Tang Jing has been here several times. We have been observing him silently. According to our observation, his strength is unfathomable. If he wants to win, perhaps the 3 of us can give it a try." The bureau chief raised his eyebrows and his eyelids twitched. He said, "The 3 of you have to work together to kill him?" "Yes, this is the conclusion we came to after observing him in secret as well as the results of his battles with other experts. Tang Jing is a cultivator and has many supernatural abilities that others cannot predict. He can often catch people off guard and cause them to be unable to defend against him." Number 1 said solemnly. Hearing this, the bureau chief lowered his head and pondered. Number 1 wasn't speaking without thinking. This was an authoritative conclusion, and he wouldn't question it. This could only mean that Tang Jing's strength was beyond his imagination. Seeing this, number 2 couldn't help but say, "Bureau chief, in my humble opinion, Tang Jing is an opponent that we can rope in. We don't have to stand on the opposite side of him." Number 3 refuted disapprovingly. "This person is young and arrogant. The best way to solve this is to get rid of him as soon as possible and prevent future troubles. Number 2 and number 3 looked at each other. The two of them had been arguing about this for a long time, and they both insisted on their own views. The bureau chief waved his hand and said decisively, "No need to say any more. Let's observe first. It's too early to make a conclusion." The three of them nodded. When Tang Zheng returned home, he chatted with the women for a while and then returned to his room. With the previous experience, when he chased after Xing Feng this time, he had called them to inform them, so they weren't too worried. He carefully took out the bottle containing the sap from the tree of life. Immediately, a strange fragrance filled the whole room, making people feel refreshed and as if they were floating in the air. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and stared at the bottle. This was what Xing Feng dreamed of, and it was taken from the tree of life. Of course, it wasn't an ordinary thing, but how to use it was a headache. At that time, Xing Feng wanted to drink it directly, but Tang Zheng didn't dare to be so rash. He knew more about the magical aspects of the tree of life than Xing Feng. As for the magical effects of this tree's sap, he still couldn't make a conclusion. Therefore, how to use it to maximize its value was the key. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a great waste to recklessly waste God's gift? He wouldn't take the sap from the tree of life without restraint like Xing Feng, because the tree of life shouldered the heavy responsibility of absorbing the energy of the world of spirits and souls. If taking the sap would affect the tree of life, then the loss would outweigh the gain. Therefore, this bottle of sap was unique and must not be wasted. Bang! Suddenly, the door was pushed open, and the Empyrean fairy rushed in with shining eyes. The others also stood at the door and looked inside curiously. The strange smell had spread throughout the villa, attracting everyone's attention. "What is this? It smells so good." The Empyrean fairy pointed at the bottle and couldn't wait to ask. "The sap from the tree of life." Tang Zheng didn't hide it and told her the truth. "The sap from the tree of life?" The Empyrean fairy's face suddenly changed and sternly reprimanded, "How can you be so crazy to take out the sap from the tree of life? This is draining the pond to catch all the fish. Do you know?" Tang Zheng's heart trembled and anxiously asked, "Draining the pond to catch all the fish, what do you mean? You don't even know the consequences, and you dare to do this. Really, the ignorant are fearless." The Empyrean fairy said angrily, "This wasn't taken out by me, it was by someone else." Tang Zheng explained, feeling wronged. "Not you?" The Empyrean fairy was startled. "Then who was it?" "Xing Feng." The Empyrean fairy frowned and said, "Who is he?" Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter who he is. According to what you said, taking out the sap from the tree of life will have serious consequences. What are the consequences?" The tree of life is related to the spiritual energy and energy of this world. If the sap is taken out, it will affect the function of the tree of life, affect the transformation of the spiritual energy of this world by the tree of life, and even the various magical functions of the tree of life will be affected. Spiritual energy was an important source of energy for a cultivator's cultivation, so if there was a change in spiritual energy, it would be a very serious matter for the cultivator. This was why the Empyrean fairy's reaction was so big. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat, faintly feeling uneasy, and nervously asked, "You said that it will affect the various magical functions of the tree of life, then will it affect?" Tang Zheng did not finish his words, and hesitated. The Empyrean fairy said unhappily, "If you have something to say, just say it. What are you dawdling for?" He used the tree of life to absorb the energy of the ghost realm, increasing the level of this world and preventing its destruction. This was one of the biggest secrets, and only Tang Zheng knew about it. So, he was weighing the pros and cons, and whether or not to tell the Empyrean fairy. The Empyrean fairy's power is profound, and she lives in this world, so if I tell her, there should be no harm. After all, if this world is destroyed, she won't be able to stay out of it. Tang Zheng silently thought. Thinking of this, he did not hide it and said, "The world we are in now is a small world, and a small world is in danger of being destroyed at any time. After all, it is only after being promoted to a large world that it will not be destroyed. So, I used the tree of life to secretly absorb the energy of the ghost realm, and replenish our world. This is a major matter that concerns the survival of this world. The Empyrean fairy's eyelids jumped, and she looked at him suspiciously and asked, "Where did you hear about the matter of the large and small worlds? Don't use Tian Chanzi to fool me, he would not know about this kind of thing." Tang Zheng was very surprised. Even Tian Chanzi did not know about this. This was something he did not expect. Could it be that the secret of the 3,000 large worlds and 9,000 small worlds was the real secret? He learned this from the 5-clawed golden dragon, so it seemed that the dragon clan knew a lot of secrets. The 5-clawed golden dragon was a big secret, and the heaven and earth obsidian was buried under the imperial city, so how could Tang Jing easily show it to others? So he said vaguely, "Let's talk about this later. First, tell me about the matter of the tree of life absorbing the energy of the ghost realm. Will it be affected?" The Empyrean fairy looked at him with burning eyes, and said faintly after a while, "Actually, I don't know either." Tang Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You don't know either?" The Empyrean fairy said with shame, Maybe it will be affected." Seeing her uncertain look, Tang Jing shook his head and sighed, and said, "It seems that there is no accurate answer. The tree of life is too mysterious, its secrets are not fully known, so I can't make a judgment." The Empyrean fairy added. Chapter 8:11. Looking at the worried face of Tang Jing, the Empyrean fairy looked at him with a burning gaze and sighed, "You really have a compassionate heart, to actually use the tree of life to absorb the energy of the ghost realm for the sake of the lives of other unrelated people in this world. It is a miracle that you can think of this method. Moreover, this is a very risky action. If the ghost realm finds out, then you will definitely become the target of the ghost realm." Tang Jing smiled bitterly. "I am not as noble as you say. I am also a person of this world. If I don't think for this world, then I will also die." "You have a kind heart, there is no doubt about that." The Empyrean fairy shook her head. "If the tree of life is really affected, then your actions towards the ghost realm will be exposed. You have to be careful." Tang Zheng's head trembled. He had seen the strength of the ghost realm, although it was only the tip of the iceberg, but he was sure that the strength of the ghost realm definitely exceeded that of the human world. If the ghost realm were to deal with him, then he would really be in trouble. Seeing Fang Shishir and Marshall also standing at the door, staring at him worriedly, Tang Jing squeezed out a smile and said, "Don't worry, I am fine, you can leave." He and the Empyrean fairy had many things to discuss. He did not want his women to worry, so he deliberately sent them away. "Fu Yao is already so serious, you still say you are fine?" Fang Shishir said unhappily. "I am really fine, she estimated it to be too serious. You can leave first, I will come find you in a while." Tang Zheng said seriously. Seeing him so insistent, Fang Shishir and Marshall looked at each other. They had no choice but to leave and return to the living room to sit down. The two of them had deep worry between their brows. Finally, Fang Shishir was the first to break the silence and asked, "You have experienced so many things with her, do you know what is going on in the ghost realm?" Marshall shook her head and said, "I also want to ask you, after all, you are also a cultivator." Fang Shishir's two curved eyebrows were tightly knitted together as she said, "I've always been overseas, how would I know about these things? Moreover, look at his attitude, it's obvious that he doesn't want us to know." Wu Liei pondered for a moment and said, "He doesn't want us to worry." Fang Shishir nodded heavily. The two women came to the same answer based on their own judgment. Fang Shishir had long guessed that Tang Jing had an unclear relationship with Marshall, so he was not interested in being jealous. He went straight to the point and asked, "Can you figure out what exactly is going on in the ghost realm? He's so protective of us, we can't just sit around and do nothing." Wu said, "You are very important to him. If you ask him, he will definitely tell you." "Aren't you very important to him too?" Fang Shishir blurted out. Marshall was startled, not knowing how to answer. Wasn't this clearly stating their relationship? Although the two of them had a tacit understanding of each other's relationship with Tang Zheng, they had never made it clear. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere immediately changed. The two of them fell into silence. At this moment, Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy were chatting enthusiastically. Tang Jing asked the Empyrean fairy about the ghost realm. The Empyrean fairy did her best to answer one by one. Tang Jing was even more aware of the difference in strength between the ghost realm and the human world. If the ghost realm really knew what he had done, they would probably eliminate him at all costs. Damn that Xing Feng. If he didn't do such a crazy thing, how could it cause such a big trouble in the future? Tang Jing thought indignantly. The ghost realm can find out about this, but you have no way to lead them. The most important thing now is to increase your strength. These juices are very precious things that cannot be exchanged with money. If you use them properly, it will definitely be very beneficial to you. How can I maximize its value? Tang Jing humbly asked for advice. Alchemy. The Empyrean fairy said straightforwardly, refining it into a medicinal pill can maximize its effect. It's better than taking it directly. Tang Jing was overjoyed and said, Alchemy? What kind of medicinal pill should I refine? This juices contains endless spiritual energy. What's more precious is that it is full of vitality. It is a sacred medicine for healing injuries. It has the miraculous effect of reviving the dead and regrowing flesh and bones. As long as a person still has a breath left, he can definitely be brought back to life. If you are injured in a battle, take the medicinal pill and your injury will be healed, and you will be full of energy again. When you are fighting with a strong enemy, this can turn the tide of the battle and turn defeat into victory. The Empyrean fairy said slowly. Tang Jing was overwhelmed. Through this simple introduction, he understood the importance of this medicinal pill. He couldn't wait to ask, what kind of medicinal pill is that? 9 Transformations Resurrection Pill. Tang Jing silently remembered this name. This was the medicinal pill that Tian Chanzi didn't tell him. Without the pill formula, it would be extremely difficult for him to refine it. Do you have the pill formula? Of course. The Empyrean fairy said, if you don't know the method of alchemy, I can do it for you. Even though this was a very tempting suggestion, Tang Jing still tactfully declined. I also know some shallow alchemy techniques, so this time I will just embarrass myself. Refining this kind of miraculous medicinal pill was very important for him to train his alchemy skills. How could Tang Jing let go of this great opportunity? Otherwise, if he missed this village, there wouldn't be another shop like this. However, it had been a long time since he last refined a medicinal pill. The 9 Transformations Pill Furnace was almost covered in dust. The 9 Transformations Pill Furnace flew out from Sumeru World. It floated in the air and spun rapidly before slowly landing on the ground. 9 Transformations Pill Furnace. The Empyrean fairy called out after a glance. Tang Jing gave a thumbs up and praised, amazing, you recognized it at a glance. Why is it only an Earth-grade magic treasure? Isn't the 9 Transformations Pill Furnace a heaven-grade magic treasure? The Empyrean fairy curiously asked. When I first obtained the 9 Transformations Pill Furnace, its grade was even lower. This is after it recovered a lot. I speculate that the 9 Transformations Pill Furnace must have been damaged in the past. That's why its grade dropped so much. Tang Jing explained. The Empyrean fairy slightly nodded and said regretfully, it should be like this. It's just a pity that such an alchemy and tool refining furnace would be lost. Tang Jing didn't care and said, since I have already raised its grade, I can also raise it to a heaven-grade magic treasure in the future. The Empyrean fairy chuckled and said, you are thinking too simply. Is it very difficult? Is it not difficult? Tang Jing rolled his eyes. He really didn't think it was too difficult. What he lacked was opportunity. As long as he had the opportunity, raising the grade of the 9 Transformations Pill Furnace wouldn't be difficult. I have a heaven-grade furnace. I can lend it to you to refine this one time. The Empyrean fairy volunteered. Tang Jing shook his head and refused. Although the 9 Transformations Pill Furnace's grade isn't high, I am already very familiar with it. That's why I still use it. Otherwise, it will rust. The Empyrean fairy didn't insist and said, I will tell you the pill recipe. When you refine it, I will stand guard at your side. Thank you. With such an expert protecting him, he would be much more relaxed. The pill recipe wasn't too complicated. There were a few complicated herbs that Tang Jing had already prepared. After all, he had a cheap disciple like the King of Medicine. The King of Medicine had given him many precious herbs and he had put them all in Sumeru world. Seeing Tang Jing take out one herb after another, the Empyrean fairy secretly nodded and said, "You are very well prepared. It seems like you often refine pills." Tang Jing blushed with shame and smiled. He hadn't refined pills for a long time and hoped that his technique wasn't too rusty. Otherwise, he would be laughed at by the Empyrean fairy. Actually, the normal 9 transformations soul return pill does not have the effect of reviving the dead or regrowing flesh and bones. However, it is still a sacred medicine for healing injuries. Only with the addition of the Tree of Life would it possess such miraculous medicinal effects. The mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens explained. Tang Jing was silent. With a flick of his finger, the herbs flew into the 9 transformations pill furnace. The furnace floated up and rotated little by little. Boom! A ball of flame ignited at the tip of Tang Jing's finger. The Empyrean fairy glanced at him and lightly said, "3rd grade true fire, its rank isn't too high." Tang Jing bitterly smiled. His ability was indeed not enough in her eyes, but he wasn't discouraged. He calmly said, "Although its rank isn't high, it's enough." The Empyrean fairy didn't say anything and quietly watched him refine the pill. Tang Jing's technique was very skilled. With a flick of his finger, the 3rd grade true fire fell into the 9 transformations pill furnace. A purple light illuminated the pill furnace. A ball of clear air slowly rose and intertwined above the 9 transformations pill furnace. It rapidly rotated until it was the size of a fist. As more and more clear air accumulated, the medicinal dregs in the pill furnace gradually decreased. In the end, it completely melted and the impurities were burned to ashes by the 3rd grade true fire. The remaining medicinal essence turned into a ball of clear air that spiraled above the pill furnace. Tang Jing was stunned as he looked at the clear air. In the past, when he refined pills, the medicinal essence was in a liquid state and could only spiral inside the 9 transformations pill furnace. But this time, it actually turned into a gaseous state and flew out of the furnace. Every time the clear air rotated, the spiritual energy in the air would be absorbed, increasing its medicinal properties. Tang Jing secretly nodded. This was definitely because his cultivation had greatly increased, so even his alchemy skills had improved. As the saying goes, mastering one method leads to mastering all methods. Cultivation was the foundation of everything. As long as the foundation was solid, then everything else would be easy. The Empyrean fairy finally nodded slightly, acknowledging his alchemy skills. Otherwise, wasting this bottle of liquid would really be a waste of heaven's gift. "Add the liquid," the Empyrean fairy reminded. Tang Jing understood and a line of liquid flew out of the bottle. It was condensed from the liquid and flew straight towards the clear air, rotating along with the clear air. The liquid wrapped around the clear air and permeated it bit by bit until it finally merged with the clear air. Boom! The 3rd grade true fire inside the alchemy furnace soared into the air and wrapped around them before falling back into the alchemy furnace. A layer of purple light flew out from the alchemy furnace and covered the 9 revolving alchemy furnace like a lid, blocking the line of sight. Tang Jing let out a long breath and clapped his hands. He had finished all the work he could do. All that was left was to refine the 9 transformations pill furnace. The refining process of the 9 transformations soul-returning pill was not done in a short period of time. It required a long time for the medicinal properties of the liquid to be fully displayed. This was the 9 transformations pill furnace's automatic process and did not require manual control. Chapter 8:12. The refining of the 9 revolutions soul-returning pill took an extremely long time as they waited for an entire day and night. During this time, Tang Jing circled around the 9 revolutions pill furnace again and again as he felt somewhat apprehensive. Although he followed the Empyrean fairy's instructions to the letter, he still did not know whether or not he would succeed. After all, the sap from the Tree of Life was not something that could be compared to other things. Once used, it would be gone. Fang Shisher and Marshall also came to ask him a few times, but seeing that he was completely focused on refining the pill, they did not voice their doubts. The two of them were filled with thoughts and could only choose to remain silent for the time being. In the evening, the sky had already darkened and the villa was brightly lit. Everyone was gathered together as they stared at the 9 revolutions pill furnace. Even Mu Hongyan and Nana were curiously gathered around, as this was the first time they had seen a pill being refined. They were both curious and excited as they looked forward to it. The 9 revolutions pill furnace had already stopped spinning and was quietly resting on the ground. However, the top of the furnace was still covered by a layer of purple light, making it impossible to see what was going on inside. Tang Zheng's expression was solemn as he took a deep breath and slapped his hands on the outside of the furnace. Kacha! The purple light shattered and completely dispersed. A gentle white light soared into the sky and instantly filled the entire room. A strange fragrance assailed everyone's nostrils, causing their limbs and bones to feel incomparably comfortable. Everyone was bathed in the light as if they had returned to their mother's embrace. A mysterious feeling of intimacy involuntarily arose and everyone's lips could not help but curl into a beautiful arc. What's wrong with me? Why do I have such a strange feeling? Everyone's heart was filled with this question as they looked at each other in dismay. However, when they saw the expressions of the others, they became even more puzzled. Tang Zheng could not help but exclaim in surprise. The Empyrean fairy had said that the 9 revolutions soul-returning pill had the miraculous effect of reviving the dead and regrowing flesh and bones. It seemed that this was not an exaggeration, as the strange phenomenon that the pill was displaying was enough to explain many things. The 9th heaven fairy's eyelids twitched a few times. Suppressing the throbbing in her heart, she pretended to be calm and urged, "Hurry up and see how the pills are doing." Tang Zheng chuckled and waved his hand. Voila, rays of light surged like the clouds in the sky. Several pills rose up and floated above the 9 revolving pill furnace. The elixir was completely white like white jade. It emitted a gentle white light and a fragrance filled the air. Is this the 9 transformations soul return pill? Fang Shishir smacked her lips and exclaimed. The others had the same reaction. They all exclaimed, "So beautiful, so magical." Tang Zheng also felt guilty as he stared at the 9 transformations soul return pellet. The 9 transformations soul return pellet was successfully refined, and not just one pellet, but a total of 36. This far exceeded his expectations. Empyrean Fairy's eyes were also filled with amazement. She had originally estimated that Tang Zheng would only be able to refine around 20 pills. But the final result was far beyond her expectations. She looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. She secretly muttered to herself, "His cultivation is still lacking. How can his alchemy skills be so good?" Moreover, this was his first time refining the 9 transformations soul return pill. He wasn't even familiar with the pill recipe, yet it had such an effect. Strange. Could it be that celestials are so blessed by the heavens? Her heart was filled with jealousy. Tang Zheng obviously didn't know what Empyrean Fairy was feeling. Otherwise he would be extremely happy. After all, the Empyrean Fairy was so mysterious and powerful. Even she was jealous. This was one of life's greatest blessings. Don't just stare. Hurry up and take them. The Empyrean Fairy urged. Tang Zheng seemed to have awoken from a dream. With a wave of his hand, the 36 pills flew into the bottle in his hand. The light that filled the sky suddenly converged on the 9 transformations pill furnace. In the blink of an eye, the light dissipated, completely absorbed by the 9 transformations pill furnace. Immediately, the 9 transformations pill furnace began to emit a faint light. The beasts carved on the walls of the furnace seemed to come alive and actually began to move. Whoosh whoosh. They left the 9 transformations pill furnace and transformed into clumps of illusory figures. They either flew or ran along the walls of the furnace. This scene immediately attracted everyone's attention. Tang Zheng's heart moved, faintly feeling that something was about to happen. "Mom, it's so beautiful. Look at those animals, they've all come alive." Nana was like a little fairy, clapping her hands and cheering excitedly. Her big eyes stared at those illusory figures as if she wanted to rush up and hug them. Mu Hongyan hurriedly pulled her daughter and whispered, "Nana, be quiet. Don't disturb your brother." She was also overwhelmed with emotions. Although her deceased husband was also a cultivator, his strength could not be compared to Tang Zheng's. Moreover, he was usually very secretive. When he was cultivating, he did not even allow her to approach him. He was not like Tang Zheng, who was so open and candid, allowing them to watch as they pleased. In comparison, her deceased husband was completely inferior. This made Tang Zheng seem even more extraordinary. The Empyrean fairy stared at the 9 transformations pill furnace. Her cherry lips could not help but open as she exclaimed, "The 9 transformations pill furnace is about to be upgraded." A few days ago, she had solemnly vowed that it would be very difficult for the 9 transformations pill furnace to return to its former peak. But in less than 2 days, all of this had happened. Without a doubt, her estimation was wrong. This did not mean that her eyesight was not good, but that she had judged Tang Zheng by the standards of an ordinary person. This was the root of her miscalculation. Tang Zheng was not an ordinary person. Even the average genius could not be compared to him. Therefore, the Empyrean fairy's experience was not applicable. When the others heard this, they became even more excited. Today was really an eye-opener. Not only did they see alchemy, they could also personally witness the upgrade of a magic weapon. To them, this was not an easy matter. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth rose. As the owner of the 9 transformations pill furnace, he naturally knew that the Empyrean fairy's words were not false. The 9 transformations pill furnace was really upgrading. All of this was due to the light that filled the room. This light contained a powerful medicinal property which was absorbed by the 9 transformations pill furnace, allowing it to complete its upgrade. In fact, it was not impossible for the 9 transformations pill furnace to upgrade. As long as enough pills or magic weapons were refined, the accumulation of medicinal properties would slowly influence the 9 transformations pill furnace. Then, there would be a day when it would return to the peak of a heaven-grade magic weapon. But at that time, the accumulation of medicinal properties was not something that could be done overnight. But now, just because the 9 transformations soul-returning pill was refined, the 9 transformations pill furnace's accumulation of medicinal properties was completed, resulting in a qualitative change. The phantoms of the birds and beasts flew towards the 9 transformations pill furnace. Then, they turned into carvings that floated on the walls of the furnace. They were vivid and lifelike as if they were living creatures. The 9 transformations pill furnace's light converged and stopped rotating. An ordinary person could feel that it had changed. It was more mysterious than before, and its dark exterior gave off an indescribable feeling. Heaven-grade magic weapon. Tang Zheng could not help but shout out. At that time, he had accidentally picked up a bargain and bought the 9 transformations pill furnace from the auction. He never thought that it would be of such great help to him. Whether it was the life-continuing pill, the spirit-gathering pill, the Dragon Yuan pill, or now the 9 transformations soul-returning pill, if he did not have the 9 transformations pill furnace, then all of these would have been like flowers in a mirror and the moon in the water. He subconsciously stroked the 9 transformations pill furnace. A strong resonance caused the true qi in his body to boil. It was as if he had become one with the furnace. The Empyrean fairy's expression returned to normal as she said, "Don't be happy too early. The 9 transformations pill furnace has not truly recovered to its peak." These words were like a bucket of cold water that was poured over his head. It immediately pulled Tang Zheng back from his excitement. He looked at the Empyrean fairy in bewilderment and asked, "Isn't it already a heaven-grade magic weapon? How come it has not recovered to its peak?" The Empyrean fairy chuckled twice. "You think that the 9 transformations pill furnace has recovered to its peak? It seems that you do not understand its original glory. The real reason why the 9 transformations pill furnace was praised by others, other than being a heaven-grade magic weapon, was because it had an artifact spirit." Artifact spirit? Tang Zheng was shocked. What is an artifact spirit? The Empyrean fairy looked at him in disbelief and said, "You don't know what an artifact spirit is? Doesn't your war spirit sword have an artifact spirit?" Tang Zhang's heart moved and he suddenly realized that the artifact spirit she was talking about was the sword spirit. The weapon spirit was also known as the artifact spirit. It was the most important component of a weapon. What is so special about the 9 transformations pill furnace that has an artifact spirit? Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the disbelief and ridicule in the Empyrean fairy's eyes and humbly asked for advice. Seeing that he was sincere and did not seem to be lying, the Empyrean fairy finally believed him and said, "With an artifact spirit, the 9 transformations pill furnace has an artifact spirit. When it refines pills or magic weapons, the owner does not need to worry about it. Everything can be handed over to the artifact spirit and it will automatically refine the pills. Whether it is the control of the heat or the quantity, it will be perfect. The same materials can be used to refine more pills and the quality of the pills will be higher. Do you think the artifact spirit is important?" Tang Zheng subconsciously nodded and asked, "Then how can a magic weapon have an artifact spirit?" Not all magic weapons can have an artifact spirit. This is an opportunity for the owner and also an opportunity for the magic weapon itself. There is no unified conclusion and there is no specific method. The Empyrean fairy explained. Tang Zheng bitterly smiled, "So it depends on luck?" "You can say that, but obviously your luck is not bad." The War Spirit Sword has an artifact spirit and is already a high-quality heaven-grade magic weapon. It is just that I see that the heaven-grade flying immortal sword technique that you are practicing is not able to fully display its power. The Empyrean fairy said without any trace of politeness. Tang Zheng suddenly froze as this was somewhat out of his expectations. He always thought that the heaven-grade flying immortal sword technique was a very powerful sword technique that accompanied him through ups and downs and killed countless enemies. But from the Empyrean fairy's words, this sword technique was not much. No matter who it was, when they heard this news, their heart would be somewhat depressed. Chapter 8:13. Seeing the Empyrean fairy's solemn vow, Tang Zheng curiously asked, "Then do you know of any sword technique in this world that is more compatible with battle spirit?" Your battle spirit contains a powerful yin qi. If you can find a sword technique that is compatible with the yin qi, you will be able to display its power. The Empyrean fairy muttered. "Is there such a sword technique?" "Of course there is." The Empyrean fairy nodded her head as if it was a matter of course. There are millions of sword techniques in this world, and there are many exquisite sword techniques. But to find a sword technique that suits your heart, you must have a great opportunity. Tang Zheng shook his head, thinking that it was fine. After talking for so long, he still had to rely on luck. There was no ready-made target for him to pursue. However, the harvest this time was already great. Not only did he successfully refine the 9 Revolutions soul-returning pill, but the 9 Revolutions pill furnace had also been upgraded to a heaven-grade treasure. Tang Zheng put away the 9 Revolutions pill furnace and focused his attention on the 9 Revolutions soul-returning pill, saying, "Does this pill really have such a miraculous ability? If you don't believe me, you can try it." "How?" "Kill yourself. When your life is hanging by a thread, take the 9 Revolutions soul-returning pill," the Empyrean fairy lightly said. Tang Zheng was stunned, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, "Forget it, I won't try it. I'll try it and believe you. But there are a total of 36 pills here. Everyone who sees it will have a share." These people were all very important to him. Although the 9 Revolutions soul-returning pill was important, it was not as important as these people. So he unceremoniously decided to share it with them. Everyone was shocked and said, "How can this be?" Especially Mu Hongyan, who shook her head like a rattledrum. Although she had always been in charge of Tang Zheng's business, she could not compare to Fang Shishir, who had a close relationship with Tang Zheng. So she never thought that she would also have a share. Although Tang Zheng generously offered to share some with her, she still refused without hesitation. Fang Shishir, Wu, and Lu Qingmei all shook their heads at the same time and said, "You often encounter danger. This kind of miraculous medicine is most suitable for you." The 3 women had the same thoughts about Tang Zheng. They cared about him more than they cared about themselves. How could they accept such an important treasure? On the contrary, and didn't back down and said in surprise, "Really? Thank you very much. Don't worry. Isn't there a saying in Huaxia that reciprocity demands reciprocity? I will definitely give you a generous gift in return." Seeing that and refused without hesitation, the other women glared at her. How could there be such a rude person? Seeing this, Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He advised, "I'm serious, everyone has a share. Although this 9 Revolutions soul returning pill is an extremely rare miraculous medicine, it's not as important as you guys." Wow, such romantic words. And clasped her hands together and praised, "I'll give you a kiss as a reward." Saying this, she passionately threw herself at him. Tang Zhang's expression slightly changed as he hurriedly retreated a few steps to avoid her. What a joke! With so many women watching, if he wanted to be hacked to death, then he would have to accept this kiss. As expected, Fang Shishir and the others fiercely glared at and before looking at Tang Zhang with an unkind expression. Tang Zhang hurriedly changed the topic and said, "Everyone, don't argue. I have already made up my mind. Of course, I will still leave some for future troubles." The people who were important to him were not limited to the people in front of him. There were only 36 9 Revolutions soul returning pills. Seeing that Tang Zhang had already made up his mind, Fang Shishir said, "Then I only want one." Without a doubt, with her taking the lead and stating the amount, the others were too embarrassed to ask for more. After all, she was Tang Zhang's official girlfriend, and was a bit disappointed and muttered, "Good things come in pairs. 2 pills would be great." The others pretended not to hear. Seeing that Tang Zhang was sincere, they could not refuse. Tang Zhang originally wanted to give everyone 2 pills, but since they insisted, he did not force them. He gave everyone 1 9 Revolutions soul returning pill, giving them a total of 7 pills. "I also get one?" Empyrean Fairy looked at the 9 Revolutions soul returning pill in her hand in shock. "You don't want it?" "I want it." Empyrean Fairy impatiently put it away. She understood the value of this pill better than the others. Although it was only 1 pill, it was still a treasure that could not be exchanged for even with money. "This is what you deserve. Not only did you provide the pill recipe, you also protected me. Being able to successfully refine the 9 Revolutions soul returning pill was because of your indispensable contribution. In fact, you deserve more." Tang Zhang sincerely said. "1 pill is more than enough." Empyrean Fairy was not greedy. "I only moved my lips. You were the one who did the work and thought." Everyone returned to their rooms to rest. Fang Shishir lay in his embrace and took out the 9 Revolutions soul returning pill, saying, "I'll return this to you. You know I have no use for it." She had coincidentally inherited the vampire's ability to heal wounds, so it was extremely difficult to harm her. She felt that she had no use for it, so she left it to Tang Zhang. Tang Zhang pushed it away and said, "Since I've given it to you, then keep it well. As for what you want to do with it, it's up to you. But it's more important to you." Fang Shishir said anxiously, "I still have 29 pills." Seeing his insistence, Fang Shishir had no choice but to accept it. The next day, everyone either attended classes or went to school. Tang Jing stayed at home to practice martial arts and digest the gains he had made during this time. The Empyrean Fairy brought Nana to practice martial arts in the courtyard. Nana practiced martial arts methodically and had a bit of a stance. This set of martial arts was used to strengthen her body's muscles and bones. It was only because she was still young that she could use this method. If she were an adult, it might not be possible. The Empyrean Fairy taught according to the individual's ability. She could be considered a great teacher. Suddenly, a person stood at the door and looked inside. When he saw the 2 beauties, one big and one small, his eyes widened and his throat became dry. He swallowed a large mouthful of saliva. The Empyrean Fairy swept her gaze over and coldly looked at the other party. The person smiled shamelessly and said, "May I ask if Tang Jing lives here?" "Or you?" the Empyrean Fairy asked coldly. Looking at this person's ugly face, she was a little hesitant. She knew that this person must be a scoundrel. I'm Tang Zheng's counselor. My surname is Yen and my name is Liang. Yen Liang introduced himself politely, but he was cursing indignantly in his heart. What did Tang Jing do? Not only did he have the favor of Princess Anne, but he also lived in such a luxurious villa. This was something he could never afford in his life. What was more infuriating was that he was hiding such a beautiful and fairy-like woman in his house. He had all the good things in the world. Yen Liang wished that he could replace Tang Zheng, but he could only think about it as it was impossible for him to do so. Ever since he saw the intimate relationship between Tang Zheng and Princess Annie, he no longer had any thoughts of resistance. If he had a choice, he would never want to see Tang Zheng and make trouble for himself. But this time, he had a huge mission. Even if he was unwilling, he had to come. He spent a lot of effort to find out where Tang Zheng lived. When he first saw the villa, he thought he had come to the wrong place. Tang Zheng was a student, and it was said that his family was not well off. How could he live in such a luxurious villa? He must be trying to please Princess Anne. That's why such a good thing happened to him. He guessed, thinking that he was smart. The Empyrean fairy did not even look at him, nor did she invite him in. She just left him at the door and shouted into the house, "Tang Zheng, someone is looking for you." Tang Zheng heard the voice and walked out. When he saw Yen Liang, he could not help but be stunned. What was he trying to do here? Yen Liang was good at currying favor. After Professor Qi lost power, he was very ugly and made things difficult for Professor Qi. So Tang Zheng had taught him a lesson. If Professor Qi had not stopped him, Tang Zheng would have made him feel even worse. However, since then, Yen Liang basically avoided him and did not dare to show his face in front of him. Today, the sun must have risen from the west. He actually dared to come to his house. Tang Zheng strode to the door, looked at him indifferently and asked, "What are you looking for me for?" Yen Liang quickly took out a brand new student ID and handed it to Tang Zheng. He affectionately said, "Student Tang Zheng, long time no see. You are getting more and more handsome. Last time, our school did not do a good job and made a mistake in canceling your student status. We have corrected it. This is your new student ID." Tang Zheng did not take it. He looked at the other party and said, "I have been cancelled by Yenqing University. So, I am no longer a student of Yen University." Misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding. Yen Liang quickly waved his hand. "We have severely punished the staff who made the mistake. So, your student status is still at Yenqing University. This time, I am here to tell you about this and invite you to come back to school when you are free." Tang Zheng could not help but laugh and said, "This is not a misunderstanding. Didn't the officials announce that I am dead? You are just doing things according to the rules." "Yes, this is an error in the official message transmission. Our school is not the main responsibility. So, we hereby explain to student Tang Zheng that your student status will be restored." Yen Liang said, nodding his head like he was pounding garlic. This time, the principal gave a strict order to invite Tang Zheng back to school. This person's experience was too unimaginable. He had actually gained the favor of Princess Anne. If they knew that he was not dead but still deleted his student status, what would Princess Anne think? A famous foreign royal princess studying at Yenqing University was a good thing that many universities in the country would fight over. During this period of time, Yenqing University's influence in the country had significantly increased. Among them, Princess Anne's name played a pivotal role. So, if Princess Anne left halfway, it would definitely be a huge loss to the school. One of the best ways to keep Princess Anne was to keep Tang Zheng. If they knew that Tang Zheng was not dead but still deleted his student status, then Princess Anne would be angry and the school would suffer. So, the important task of inviting Tang Zheng back to school fell on the instructor, Yen Liang. Chapter 8:14. Yen Liang left in a daze. When he returned, he was scolded by the principal for not doing his job well. However, Tang Zheng was not in the mood to care about Yen Liang. The difference in status between the two was like heaven and earth. He would rather cultivate in peace than deal with this kind of person. He used the sky-swallowing technique to absorb other people's energy to increase his own cultivation twice. This was a good thing but also a bad thing. He realized that he was relying too much on the sky swallowing technique. This was not a good idea. If he continued to use this method to increase his cultivation, it would shake his foundation. The losses outweighed the gains. Therefore, he concentrated on cultivating and consolidating his cultivation. The next day, the school leaders came to find him. Tang Zheng closed the door and refused to see them. They seemed to want to send him back to school. Tang Zheng snorted and was unmoved. The only people in Yenching University that he was reluctant to leave were his classmates and Professor Qi Shaon. He was not familiar with the others, so naturally he had no feelings for them. As for the school leaders, after seeing what they did to Professor Qi, he did not have a good impression of them. The school leaders were rebuffed and left dejectedly. After wholeheartedly cultivating for a few days, Tang Zheng's harvest was plentiful as he consolidated his cultivation. Moreover, his cultivation showed signs of reaching the next level. He believed that if he put in more effort, he would definitely be able to reach the 5th grade of Jindan. After returning to the capital for a few days, he still had not gone to see Yi Dingdang. Coincidentally, he refined the 9 transformations soul return pill. When night fell, Yi Dingdang had already returned home from school. She saw Tang Zheng standing downstairs and was pleasantly surprised like a swallow flying into his arms. "Why are you here?" "Because I missed you." At least you have a conscience." During this period of time, she really missed Tang Zheng. After the intimate skin-to-skin contact, the relationship between the two broke through that barrier. Tang Zheng's figure would often appear in Yi Dingdang's mind, so much so that she would occasionally laugh foolishly in class. "Come, let's go upstairs," Tang Zheng said. Yi Dingdang shook her head. "No, let's kiss first." She raised her head and looked at him expectantly. Looking at the beautiful face that was so close to him, Tang Zheng shook his head. She was different from other people. She was passionate and dared to love and hate. The other girls wouldn't ask him for a kiss in public. However, this feeling was really good. He lowered his head and kissed her. After tasting the forbidden fruit for the first time, Yi Dingdang was immediately aroused. She hooked her arms around his neck and responded to him passionately. Cough cough. There was a sudden cough. Yi Dingdang bounced back as if she had been electrocuted. She looked at the person in bewilderment. This voice was too familiar. It was actually her father, Yi Tanlei. Yi Tanlei looked at the two awkwardly. When did the two of them become so close? Tang Zheng's skin was thick enough. His face didn't turn red and his heart didn't skip a beat. It was as if nothing had happened. He nodded at Yi Tanlei and calmly said, "Uncle Yi, you're back." Yi Tianlei looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. Tang Zheng was the benefactor of the Ye family and was also his boss. Moreover, Feng Xinyang always wanted him to be her son-in-law. Thus, Tang Zheng's identity was too complicated. Even if he bumped into their good thing, he couldn't say anything. He faintly sighed and said, "You're here. I haven't come to see you in a long time. I just happened to be free today. Then let's go upstairs." After Yi Tianlei finished speaking, he took the lead and walked in. Yi Dingdang fiercely glared at Tang Zheng and complained in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "You only came to see me when you were free. You didn't come especially to see me." "How could that be? I came especially to see you." At least you have a conscience," Yi Dingdang happily said. How could this be hidden from Yi Tianlei's ears? He helplessly shook his head and thought that his children and grandchildren had their own fortune. He couldn't care less. Moreover, this was a good thing that his wife was happy to see. As expected, Feng Xinyang saw the three of them enter together. Her face was about to bloom with a smile as she quickly welcomed Tang Zheng in. Yi Dingdang saw her mother's appearance. She curled her lips and said, "Feng Xinyang, why do I feel that you treat Tang Zheng better than you treat your daughter?" Feng Xinyang happily said, "Of course. Don't you see how outstanding the little handsome is? Not only is he handsome, he's also young and promising. If I don't treat this kind of young talent well, who else would I treat well?" "But I'm your daughter," Yi Dingdang argued. "I've already raised you for more than 10 years. I've long seen enough. Of course the little handsome is even more interesting," Feng Xinyang said. "Forget it. I've been defeated by you. Biased. Cough cough. Yinlei dryly coughed twice and said, let the young people talk. Why are you interfering? Go and cook. Feng Xinyang coldly glared and said, Ye, when did you command me? Yi Tianlei did not dare to contradict her. He embarrassedly smiled. How am I commanding you? Isn't this a suggestion? That's more like it. Feng Xinyang's face lit up with joy again. Little handsome, you and Ding Ding play for a while. Aunt Feng will immediately go and prepare the meal. Go to my room. Yi Dingdang did not allow any explanation as she pulled Tang Jing into the room. Yi Dunlei wanted to stop her but was interrupted by Feng Xinyang. Why are you stopping me? How can you let the two of them be in the same room? You don't know what I just saw. Yi Dunlei anxiously said. What did you see? They were kissing. Yi Tianlei hesitated for a moment before saying. Feng Xinyang's eyes lit up and said, Wah, this girl has finally been enlightened. Not bad, she's very similar to this old mother's style. Yi Dunlei helplessly rolled his eyes and said, Is there a mother like you? Other mothers are strictly guarded, deeply afraid that their daughter will be at a disadvantage. You, on the other hand, can't wait to push your daughter away. Little Handsome is so outstanding. If other mothers met such a good son-in-law, I'm afraid they would be more powerful than me. If they were as stubborn as you, Little Handsome would have long been seduced away by other women. Where would there be a place for our daughter? You have to fight for your own happiness. Women are no exception. But she is after all a girl. She has to be reserved. Yi Tianlei's words had not yet finished when he was fiercely grabbed by Feng Xinyang's waist and said, You're saying that I wasn't reserved in the past? If I wanted to be reserved, where would there be a place for you? Yi Dunlei did not think that he would suffer such an unexpected calamity. He quickly begged for mercy. I didn't mean that. You misunderstood. Heng, I misunderstood? Then come to the kitchen and explain clearly. Otherwise, you won't have a share in tonight's dinner. Feng Xinyang's heroic spirit was high-spirited, valiant, and heroic. Yi Tianlei was helpless as he was dragged to the kitchen to work as a laborer and did not have the chance to interfere with Tang Jing and Yi Dingdang. The two people were already passionately entangled together. They rolled on the bed. Their limbs were entangled together. Their lips were tightly pressed together as they passionately kissed. Yi Dingdang's breath was like orchids. Tang Jing's passion was like fire. Yi Dingdang was wearing a pair of denim shorts. Tang Jing's slender legs fell into Yi Dingdang's palms. Her skin was as smooth as silk and as white as jade. It made Tang Jing forget to go back. His other hand was not well behaved. It drilled into the t-shirt, attacking and conquering, bravely climbing to the peak. Don't, they are outside. Yi Dingdang hurriedly grabbed his hand, trying to stop him. It's okay. The door is closed. You're not allowed to do that. You can only touch. Otherwise, I'll kick you off the bed. Yi Dingdang took a step back. Can you bear to kick me? Tang Jing said shamelessly. Yi Dingdang winked slyly. You can try. Tang Jing knew Yi Dingdang's temper. He compromised. Then let's not try. I'll just touch. Yi Dingdang was like a victorious general as she proudly raised her head. But in the next moment, she took a deep breath and tenderly said, Be gentle. Tang Jing used a bit of force and said, Do you still dare to kick me? I want to kick. Yi Dingdang struggled and refused to admit defeat. Ha, little girl, you still don't want to admit defeat, right? Tang Jing said with a smirk. He used more force in his hand. The warmth and softness of his hand was refreshing and made his heart sway. I don't want to admit defeat. Yi Dingdang bit her lips and grabbed with the back of her hand. Tang Jing sucked in a breath of cold air and cried out in alarm, Wah, are you trying to murder your husband? He looked down and saw that her small hands had actually slipped into his pants and grabbed his lifeline. Yi Dingdang smirked. Now you know how powerful I am. Who wants to admit defeat? I admit defeat. Tang Jing hung his head dejectedly. You're murdering your husband. You're ruining your happiness for the rest of your life. Who said you're my husband? If you're so thick-skinned and shameless. Stop fooling around. Otherwise you'll really break it. Besides, if you keep doing this, what if I can't control myself and take you on the spot? Then come at me. Yi Dingdang deliberately pinched Tang Zheng and winked teasingly. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why didn't I realize you were so naughty before? Even if you dare, I wouldn't dare. Coward. You dare say I'm a coward? When there's no one around, see how I'll deal with you. Tang Zheng threatened. Come at me. Who's afraid of who? Yi Dingdang shrugged and didn't admit defeat. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Feng Xinyang shouted from outside. Come out and eat. Okay, coming. The two hurriedly got off the bed and tidied up their messy clothes. Yi Dingdang's face was still a bit red. She glared fiercely at Tang Zheng before the two walked out. The four of them sat around the table. Feng Xinyang constantly urged Tang Zheng to eat more. She gave him food with incomparable enthusiasm. Yi Tianlei stuffed food into his mouth without tasting it. He glanced at his daughter from the corner of his eye and found that she was looking at Tang Zheng with love. He couldn't help but sigh. Her status in the family was getting worse day by day. She was practically like air. He couldn't help but feel a bit sour. Most fathers would have complex emotions. A grown woman can't be kept. It seems like this woman won't be kept for long. The meal was finished amidst laughter and chatting. After chatting for a while, Tang Zheng stood up and said his goodbyes. Yi Dingdang took the initiative to send him downstairs. In the darkness, the two hid behind a big tree to prevent others from seeing them. You've only been here for a while and you're already leaving. You really don't have a conscience. Yi Dingdang bitterly said. Chapter 8:15. When Yi Dingdang heard this, she heavily punched him and said, What nonsense are you thinking about? Tang Zheng did not allow her to explain as he pulled her hand and said while walking, It would be bad if we were discovered here. There is a hotel nearby, so let's go to the hotel. Hooligan, a complete hooligan. Yi Dingdang did not refuse and allowed him to pull her into a nearby hotel. Bang! Just as the door was closed, Yi Dingdang cried out in alarm as she was picked up by the waist. You are too impatient. Tang Zheng gasped for breath and said, Who told you to provoke me at home? Let's see who wins and who loses. Hang, do you think I'm afraid of you? Isn't there a saying that there are only tired cows but no plowed fields? Yi Dingdang proudly said. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry as he slapped her butt and said, Who taught you this? The people in the dorm said it. It seems like you have learned bad things from them. You are the worst. Then I'll show you how bad I am. Let's see if your field is better or if my cow is more powerful. Tang Zheng tyrannically said. Yi Dingdang hooked her finger and said, Come, who's afraid of who? After a long drought, Yi Dingdang tasted the sweetness of the fruit and became more familiar with it. Very quickly, she became one with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng felt a strong attractive force coming from below, making him feel as if his soul was about to leave his body. Tang Zheng was startled as he looked at her in disbelief. Yi Dingdang's face was full of spring as she charmingly asked, Why aren't you moving? Do you feel anything strange? What strange? Yi Dingdang did not understand. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and suppressed his strange thoughts as he continued to gallop. Suddenly, that feeling came again as if his soul was about to leave his body. Moreover, his pure yang energy was flowing from below into Yi Dingdang's body. Originally, the two of them did not have this feeling the first time, but this time it was so strong that he was puzzled. You are absorbing my pure yang energy, Tang Zheng said. Yi Dingdang's mind was not clear as she asked in a daze, What pure yang energy? Tang Zheng gave a rough explanation and said, How did you absorb my pure yang energy? In the past, the pure yang energy in his body had been mediated by absorbing pure yin energy. It was extremely difficult for the pure yang energy to leak out. Other than when Qin Shi Huang had absorbed his power, he had also absorbed the pure yang energy. Other than that, the pure yang energy had always been firmly rooted in his body. Yi Dingdang was also confused and said, I also don't know. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat as she shyly said, However, every time we do this, my Jade Woman's Heart Sutra will automatically activate. Especially after we did it last time, my power increased by 2 levels. Your power has increased by 2 levels. Tang Zheng took a closer look, and sure enough, her power had indeed increased by a lot. But his strength did not change last time. Why was this? Suddenly, his heart moved as he remembered a long time ago when Tian Chanzi occasionally mentioned something. Yi Dingdang cultivated the Jade Heart Sutra and would give him a pleasant surprise in the future. Could this be the pleasant surprise that Tian Chanzi mentioned? Yi Dingdang cultivated the Jade Heart Sutra and could actually absorb his pure yang energy. This was more effective than absorbing the pure yin energy from Yi Dingdang's body. Removing the firewood from under the cauldron, if the pure yang energy was absorbed, it would naturally reduce the danger of his body exploding. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. The heaven monk was truly cunning. He actually did not tell him, causing him to almost forget about it. Furthermore, the last time the two of them were having fun together, they did not have any strange feelings, so he forgot about it. Now it seems that Tian Chanzi's words were not false and gave him a big pleasant surprise. But whether or not this pure yang energy was harmful to Yi Dingdang was not certain. Do you feel uncomfortable? Tang Zheng asked with concern. Yi Dingdang punched him and said, "Rogue, after doing this you still ask me if I feel comfortable?" She bit her lips and spat out 2 words, "comfortable." Tang Zheng knew that he had misunderstood and awkwardly explained, "That's not what I meant. I was asking if there was any problem with your body." Yi Dingdang finally understood his words and suspiciously looked at him, asking, "No, I just feel a warm feeling in my body, as if there is a warm current flowing through my entire body. Last time I didn't feel it that strongly, but this time I feel it even more strongly." Tang Zheng guessed that this was definitely because of the pure yang energy. However, since she did not have any major problems, then there was no problem. It was just that the suction force was very long-lasting and Yi Dingdang did not feel it at all. This made it difficult for Tang Zheng, and not long after, he was defeated. Yi Dingdang unhappily pouted and complained, "Why can't I? Did you do too many bad things outside? I heard my roommates say that men do too many bad things outside, that's why they can't do it." Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry and said, "Don't listen to your roommate's nonsense. It's not that I can't do it." He lamented in his heart and finally recalled the teasing expression in the depths of Tian Chanzi's eyes when he said that he would give him a pleasant surprise. Perhaps his so-called pleasant surprise was not only Yi Dingdang being able to absorb pure yang energy, but also the attractive force that made him throw away his armor. "Tian Chanzi, you are really bad. You want to see me make a fool of myself, right? I won't let you get your way." Tang Zheng took a deep breath and said, "If you dare to say that I can't do it, then just wait for the storm to come." After he finished speaking, he threw himself onto Yi Dingdang's body. Tang Zheng did not win one battle after another. In the end, his legs went soft and he ended the battle with Yi Dingdang's laughter. He lay on the bed, exhausted. Yi Dingdang lay on his chest, the corners of her mouth raised into a sweet smile, and said, "What they said was true. There are only tired cows and no plowed fields. I'll squeeze you dry. Let's see if you can still be romantic in the future." Tang Zheng wanted to cry but had no tears. How could this bullshit Jade Girl Heart Sutra be so powerful? Jade Girl, it seemed more like a lustful woman. The two rested for a moment. Yi Dingdang was satisfied as she held onto Tang Zheng's hand and walked out of the hotel. When they returned home, Yi Dingdang looked at his weak appearance and deliberately said, "How about we fight again tomorrow?" Tang Zheng hurriedly waved his hand. "Killing the goose that lays the golden eggs is not a good thing." "Heng, are you scared now? Little guy, let's see if you dare to be naughty in the future. Be good and listen to me, do you understand?" Yi Dingdang patted his face and teased him with the tone of a big sister. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This time he fell into a big mess. The next time he met Tian Chanzi, he would definitely find him to settle the score. "You should go back quickly. Otherwise, they will be worried," Tang Zheng urged. "I'll let you go this time. You should go back too." Yi Dingdang took the initiative to kiss him and then happily went upstairs. Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang were sitting in the living room. When they saw her enter, 2 pairs of eyes stared at her. Yi Dingdang guiltily looked at the two and said, "I'm going to sleep." Seeing their daughter enter the room, the husband and wife looked at each other. Just now, Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang had left for 2 to 3 hours. The husband and wife's hearts were filled with apprehension as they waited for a long time. Do you think they? Yi Tianlei nervously asked. Feng Xinyang recalled her daughter's appearance just now. She must have been nourished by the rain. She half-heartedly said, "It's a child's matter. Why do you care so much?" "Why wouldn't I care? Dingdang is my daughter." Seeing her husband's excited appearance, Feng Xinyang did not care at all and said, "Isn't this a good thing? Now that I've firmly grasped the little handsome brother, he won't be able to escape." Yanlei fiercely grabbed a handful of hair and said in distress, "But she is my daughter. A grown daughter cannot be kept. I'm going to lose her." It was said that a daughter was a father's lover in his previous life. Seeing his daughter grow up and fall into the arms of another man, Yi Tianlei's heart was indeed uncomfortable and full of jealousy. In the next few days, Tang Zheng's body was peaceful. He had absorbed a lot of pure yang energy. Yin and yang were in harmony and his skills were becoming more and more profound. He sat cross-legged in the room and operated his mysterious art. The ancient clear heaven scroll's power flowed along his meridians and flowed through his limbs and bones. The dragon god's secret art also played its role. His body flickered with a golden light and occasionally dragon scales would appear on his skin. The true qi in his body steadily rose. This time, it was all from his own cultivation and not from other people's bodies. Therefore, the feeling was particularly different. Suddenly, the golden light on his body surged and the three-clawed golden dragon broke through his head. It shook its head and wagged its tail as it soared into the air and swam around the room. Strong winds blew and the golden light was dazzling. His aura steadily rose, especially the majestic dragon's aura that caused the atmosphere in the room to change. If a person stood in front of him, they would definitely kneel down. He was like an emperor. Especially with the golden dragon circling around him, the dragon's aura was grand. It made people tremble in fear and involuntarily want to submit to him. Of course, this was only for ordinary people or people with weak cultivation. If it was a strong person, they would naturally be able to resist this kind of power. Unknowingly, the golden light on the golden dragon's body became brighter and brighter. A ball of golden light gathered at its abdomen and a dragon claw stretched out from the golden light. The fourth dragon claw. Although Tang Zheng's eyes were closed, he could clearly feel everything. When he saw the birth of the fourth dragon claw, he was overjoyed. This meant that the dragon god's secret art had reached the fourth layer and he could ascend to the fourth floor of Langya Pavilion. There were countless treasures hidden in Langya Pavilion. If he could ascend to the fourth floor, what kind of treasures would he find? This made him extremely excited and unable to calm down. The fourth dragon claw was still growing. The shining golden dragon scales were especially dazzling. A dragon's roar reverberated in the room. All the furniture was instantly shattered and turned into fine powder. The Empyrean fairy jumped up from the sofa in shock and rushed to Tang Zheng's door like lightning. The dragon's roar was even clearer. This dragon's roar did not spread too far, but with her hearing, she naturally heard it clearly. Dragon's roar! Her expression changed. What's going on? She could not help but recall the scene in the tomb. Tang Zheng seemed to be about to transform into a dragon. Although he did not explain afterwards, she was still very curious. Could it be that the golden dragon had appeared again? Chapter 8:16. The Empyrean fairy suppressed her curiosity and stood at the door like a puppet. She stared at the door as if she wanted to see through it. The fourth claw of the golden dragon had completely grown out. Tang Zheng had broken through to the fourth stage of the dragon god technique. The four-clawed golden dragon shone with a golden light. The dragon vein running through the dragon's body was particularly clear. The ninth main meridian in Tang Zheng's body was also shining brightly and complementing the dragon vein. Back then, Tang Zheng had absorbed the dragon vein of the Qinling Mountains and merged it with his ninth main meridian. The dragon vein was the ninth main meridian that connected him and the golden dragon. The golden dragon opened its mouth and roared. It shook its head and wagged its tail as it dove toward Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was bathed in golden light. The golden dragon swelled and rushed into the dragon seal. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it circled around for a while. Then, it calmed down and circled around in the dragon roar. The golden light dissipated and Tang Zheng returned to normal. However, there was an occasional flash of golden light in his eyes that had a captivating charm. He channeled his energy slightly and the shocking dragon's might was completely withdrawn. He returned to the appearance of an ordinary young man. Phew! He heaved a heavy sigh. The scene just now was truly shocking, causing his heart to beat wildly. The higher the level of the Dragon God technique, the more unexpected the scene of each breakthrough would be. 7. Now that the Dragon God technique has reached the 4th stage, I can enter the 4th floor of the Langya Pavilion. He was extremely excited. What exactly was hidden on the 4th floor of the Langya Pavilion? Dong dong. The sound of knocking on the door interrupted his thoughts. The Empyrean fairy had already discovered that the aura in the room had disappeared, so she knocked on the door. Tang Zheng, may I come in? Please come in. Tang Zheng stood up. The Empyrean fairy pushed the door open and stared at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. It was as if she wanted to see through him, but strangely, his cultivation did not change much. What was that dragon roar just now? The Empyrean fairy asked in a deep voice. I heard a dragon roar just now. Tang Zheng nodded and admitted, yes. You summoned the golden dragon again? Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment. I didn't summon it. It ran out on its own when I was cultivating. The Empyrean fairy had seen the golden dragon before, and she had seen it absorb the dragon vein of the Qinling Mountains. Therefore, there was no need to hide it. What martial art do you practice? The Empyrean fairy asked directly. The dragon god art was a divine art of the dragon clan. He could pass it on to Lu Qingmei, but he didn't dare to tell the Empyrean fairy. Sorry, I can't tell you this, Tang Zheng replied. The Empyrean fairy raised her eyebrows. She did not expect Tang Zheng to reject her so cleanly. She looked at him with displeasure. Tang Zheng was helpless. He looked at her and refused to budge. After a long time, the Empyrean fairy knew that she could not force Tang Zheng to compromise, so she asked, I haven't asked you before. Since you practice this mysterious martial art, you must have a close relationship with the Dragon Clan. Do you know what the Dragon Clan represents? What does the Dragon Clan represent? Tang Zheng was confused. Isn't the Dragon Clan the Dragon Clan? The Empyrean fairy looked at him like she was looking at an idiot. You practice the Dragon Clan's martial art, but you don't know what the Dragon Clan represents? In fact, the Empyrean fairy was just casually asking as a test. She didn't expect to get such an answer. It was truly out of her expectations. Moreover, Tang Zheng did not look like he was lying. The Dragon Clan is not a creature of our world. What? Since you know about the big world and the small world, you should know that we are not the only ones in the great wide world. The Dragon Clan is not a creature of our world, but a creature of another world. It's just that a small part of them came to our world at some point in time. Because of their powerful and majestic strength, they were treated as spiritual totems and passed down generation after generation. Tang Zheng was shocked. Even the 5-clawed golden dragon did not tell him about this. Perhaps ordinary cultivators were not aware of this, so Tian Chanzi did not mention it. The Empyrean fairy's identity was mysterious, so she knew the secrets. Where did the Dragon Clan come from? Tang Zheng asked curiously. The Empyrean fairy took a deep breath and seemed to be lost in her memories. After a long time, she said slowly, I don't know where they come from, but there are rumors that it's a world of dragons. The strong are everywhere, and the weak can't survive. Tang Zheng could not help but imagine for a moment. The 5-clawed golden dragon's strength was already frightening, not to mention the Dragon Clan that was even stronger. What kind of world would it be? In any case, with Tang Zheng's brain, he could not imagine what kind of world it was for the time being. Then why did the Dragon Clan come to our world? Tang Zheng asked again. I don't know. You practiced the Dragon Clan's cultivation method, so I wanted to ask you. The Empyrean fairy said. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. How would I know? If you don't know, Then where did your dragon clan's cultivation method come from? The Empyrean fairy did not give up and asked. It was a coincidence, Tang Zheng said perfunctorily. The Empyrean fairy coldly snorted. She knew that it was useless to ask, so she simply stopped asking. She said meaningfully, the dragon clan is very involved. If others know that you practice the dragon clan's cultivation method, then you will become a delicious cake. What do you mean? Tang Zheng's head trembled. The dragon clan is the spiritual totem of this world. You have also experienced Qin Shi Huang's crazy worship of the dragon clan. So, if others know that you not only have a golden dragon, but also a dragon clan's cultivation method, what do you think they will do? The Empyrean fairy looked at him with a smile and asked. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. It seemed that he had become Tang Seng's meat, and everyone wanted to take a bite. He had a lingering fear. Fortunately, he stopped Lu Qingmei from practicing the dragon god's cultivation method in time and changed it to another cultivation method. Otherwise, with her strength, it would be very dangerous for her to be targeted by others. Moreover, he could not reveal the secret of the dragon god's cultivation method in front of others. As for the golden dragon in the dragon seal, unless it was absolutely necessary, he absolutely could not let it appear. Sigh, when the five-clawed golden dragon passed on the dragon god's cultivation method to me, it actually did not remind me of this point. I almost caused a disaster. He could not help but curse in his heart. The Empyrean fairy saw his expression change and said, "So, you should take care of yourself. If you want to tell me about your cultivation method at any time, maybe I will remember some things about the dragon clan." Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was obvious that the Empyrean fairy did not finish her words. This was a trick up her sleeve, just like how he also kept a trick up his sleeve and did not tell her everything. The Empyrean fairy left in disappointment. Tang Zheng closed the door again and silently circulated his cultivation method, preparing to enter the fourth floor of the Langya Pavilion in one go. The Langya Pavilion had a total of 18 floors, and the dragon god's cultivation method had 9 layers. Every time he broke through a layer, he would be able to ascend to the 9th floor of the Langya Pavilion. However, there were still 9 floors left in the Langya Pavilion. He was very curious about what was on the top floor, but the 5-clawed golden dragon did not mention anything, so he could not guess. Langya Pavilion. The 3 words floated on the horizontal board above his head. Tang Zheng walked into the Langya Pavilion. He directly crossed the steps and directly arrived at the steps leading to the 4th floor. He took a deep breath, raised his foot, and stepped onto the first step. Nothing happened. Only then did the corners of his mouth overflow with a smile, and he walked up the steps. He reached the 4th floor. When his foot landed on the floor of the 4th floor, the scene in front of him shocked him. When he looked back, the steps leading up had disappeared. He looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. Everything was so familiar. The blackboard, the desks, the classroom, and countless students who were immersed in their studies. Wasn't this the classroom in his high school? He looked around. It was indeed that classroom. He could not be more familiar with it. He spent more than 2 years of his high school life in this classroom. It was an unforgettable time. He fell from the top genius of the school to the bottom of the valley. He became the target of ridicule and even bullying. Many people, from teachers to students, laughed at him. It was a dark period of history. The pressure he endured was unimaginable to ordinary people. On one hand, there was the kind expectations of his grandfather, and on the other hand, there was the contemptuous and mocking gaze. It made him feel as if he was in the fire of hell. Tang Zheng, are you daydreaming again? Do you still think you're the top genius of the school? You're affecting other students' studies. You're a rat's poop, spoiling the pot of soup in our class. A piece of chalk hit his head. The familiar voice of the head teacher, Wu Zuihong, sneered. Her words were sharp, and she mercilessly mocked and ridiculed him. Tang Zheng suddenly raised his head and saw the familiar and hateful face of the old witch. A wave of anger rushed to his head. What right do you have to criticize me? Is this how you should be as a teacher? He was about to refute, but a series of ridicule followed one after another. He saw that the people around him were pointing at him and laughing non-stop. Tang Zheng, you're a pauper. What right do you have to sit with us? You'll be a pauper your whole life. You should go pick up trash with your stinky grandfather. How dare you sit in this bright and clean classroom? Get lost, the garbage dump is where you belong. Get lost, the garbage dump is where you belong. The others laughed and echoed. They directly pushed Tang Zheng, trying to push him out of the classroom. The old witch also came in front of him. That evil face of hers was laughing and scolding. Every word was like a knife, stabbing into his heart. Tang Zheng's face and ears were red. He was panting and his murderous aura surged. He hysterically roared, I'm going to kill you all. Haha, you still want to kill us? You're just a pauper with nothing. We can kill you in minutes. You still want to kill us? Keep dreaming. The crowd mocked. Tang Zheng clenched his fists. His veins were exposed, and his eyes flashed with a golden light. With a schwa sound, the war spirit sword appeared in his hand. However, the others were not afraid of him. They continued to provoke him with words, as if they were not afraid of death at all. Chapter 8:17. The sword chi of war spirit was like a rainbow as it fell on the heads of the crowd. How could these people be a match for war spirit? They would definitely be smashed into pieces and turn into a rain of blood. Tang Zheng. Suddenly, a delicate voice came from the crowd, and a graceful figure squeezed out with difficulty, standing gracefully in front of him. Tang Zheng, you are a good person. You can't hurt them. War spirit hung above her head, but she was not afraid at all. She said, Tang Zheng, I believe that you won't do such a thing. We are all classmates. Although these people are annoying, you can't put yourself in a desperate situation because of them. Killing them is useless. We have to be strong ourselves. I believe that you will become very strong and once again proudly stand in front of them. Tang Zheng stared at this person without blinking. Fang Shishir. The concern on her face was so real that it touched his heart. His heartstrings trembled as he said, They are all scolding me and insulting me. I hate them. In this world, there are people who slander me, bully me, humiliate me, laugh at me, look down on me, scold me, lie to me. What should I do? You just have to endure them, let them, avoid them, tolerate them, respect them, and ignore them. After a few more years, look at them. Fang Shishir advised earnestly. Compared to you, these people are like fireflies compared to the sun and moon. There is no comparison at all. You can't sacrifice yourself for them. It's not worth it. Tang Zheng's heartstrings trembled, and his gaze also changed. These words seemed to have a magical power, and more importantly, there was not the slightest trace of disdain or ridicule between her brows. It was completely from the bottom of her heart. His nature was not bad. After being exposed by her, it was as if a bucket of ice water was poured over his head. His anger went down the drain. Looking at those ugly faces, they could not provoke his anger at all. These people had become insignificant, like passing clouds. With a wave of his hand, they disappeared into thin air. Fang Shishir looked at him and Wanner smiled. Her figure gradually faded, and in an instant, she disappeared with the others. Tang Zheng was suddenly startled, as if he had just woken up from a dream. He looked around, but there was no classroom. Everything just now was really a golden millet dream. Although it was real, it was particularly distant. He still had a lingering fear. He knew that he was in great danger just now. He was afraid that it was the work of the legendary inner demons. If Fang Shishir hadn't appeared in time to stop him, not only would he have killed those people, but he would also have fallen into the devil's path and suffered qigong deviation. In the past, he had only heard of people going berserk while practicing martial arts. He had never thought that it would be so close to him. If he went berserk, then he would really be ruined. He looked at the fourth floor. Perhaps the dream just now was caused by the fourth floor. What was so special about this floor? This floor was completely different from the other floors. There were no bookshelves or anything like that. It was completely empty. There was only a huge mirror placed in the middle of the room. It was as tall as a person. Tang Zheng carefully walked in front of the mirror. He could clearly see himself in the mirror, but he was shocked by his own reflection. His appearance in the mirror was naturally the same as his actual appearance, but there were wisps of black smoke rising from his body. What's going on? He was shocked. The inner demons have been destroyed. The devil's power has left the body and turned into ashes. A line of words suddenly appeared on the mirror, firmly attracting Tang Zheng's attention. He suddenly realized that the wisps of black smoke were the devil's power. Humans have inner demons. If they can't defeat the inner demons, then they will be controlled by the inner demons. They will fall into the devil's path and become bloodthirsty. Another line of words appeared, as if to answer Tang Zheng's question. The appearance of the devil's power leaving the body could only be seen in the mirror. It couldn't be seen by looking down. This was very mysterious, and Tang Zheng couldn't take his eyes off the mirror. The wisps of black smoke became fainter and finally disappeared completely. Eliminate the devil and protect the Tao. The Exorcist Realm. The Exorcist Mirror. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. Could it be that this mirror was called the Exorcist Mirror, and that the illusion just now was caused by the Exorcist Realm? Moreover, it happened without warning, making it impossible to guard against. It could pry into the most fundamental part of a person's heart. Tang Zheng recalled that scene. Obviously, those years of suffering in school had left an indelible impression in his heart. He thought that he had forgotten, but he didn't expect that it would be imprinted in the depths of his heart and become the inner demons. The Exorcist Mirror evoked the inner demons, and the murderous intent in his heart surged, almost causing him to go berserk. All of this was thanks to Feng Shishir. Her kindness and beauty had left a mark in his heart back then. Therefore, even if the inner demons acted up, Feng Shishir's usual kindness had triggered the kindness in Tang Zheng's heart. Although he was angry, in the end, there was still kindness in his heart. He was also a kind person. I must thank her properly when I get out. He focused his attention on the Exorcist Mirror again. There was no difference between his reflection in the mirror and an ordinary mirror. I thought that there would be some more powerful secret on the 4th floor, but I didn't expect that there would only be a mirror. How disappointing. He shook his head and searched everywhere, but found nothing. He didn't know how rare the Exorcist Mirror was. The fact that it was carefully stored in Langya Pavilion was enough to show how extraordinary the Exorcist Mirror was. Once the inner demons in a person's body were expelled, cultivation would be twice as effective with half the effort, and there would be no need to worry about going berserk. Going berserk was a problem that many people with high cultivation had to face. If one's cultivation was low, the inner demons would not cause trouble. The higher one's cultivation was, the more likely the inner demons would act up. Without the inner demons causing trouble, Tang Zheng could cultivate smoothly, and his cultivation speed was even faster than before. However, he didn't know this, so he underestimated the power of the Exorcist Mirror. However, he wasn't in a hurry to leave Langya Pavilion. Cultivating in Langya Pavilion was twice as effective with half the effort, so he certainly wouldn't let go of this opportunity. When he channeled his power, he immediately noticed something strange. In the past, when he channeled his vital qi, he would occasionally feel sluggish, but now it was unimpeded, like a river flowing through a riverbed. It was extremely smooth. Could it be because I've gotten rid of my inner demon? His heart stirred, and he immediately thought of this. The vital qi in his body was almost accumulated. Now that the inner demons were no longer causing trouble, his vital qi soared, and the spiritual energy in Langya Pavilion was absorbed into his body in the blink of an eye. Somehow, he had a feeling that his cultivation seemed to have reached the bottleneck of a breakthrough. In order to do it in one go, he took out the crystal stone that the King of Sweden had given him. Crystal stones were of a higher level than spirit stones. They contained a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, and were rare treasures for cultivators. The King of Sweden had given him one, and the other was for Tian Chanzi. He took out his own crystal stone, held it in the palm of his hand, and channeled his power. Spiritual energy flowed into his body continuously, and his vital qi rose steadily. His whole body shone brightly, and a flame appeared on top of his head. It was a 3rd-grade vital fire. The flame burned fiercely, and the flame jumped, its color becoming darker and darker. Suddenly, the flame rose high, and Tang Zheng's body made a thunderous sound. The light outside his body was instantly restrained, and the vital fire also entered the top of his head. In his 8 extraordinary meridians, his vital qi was like a torrential flood, flowing continuously and finally flowing into the golden elixir. The golden elixir shone brightly, illuminating the entire dantian. The golden elixir grew little by little. When the vital qi subsided, the golden elixir was actually one size bigger and became the size of a ping-pong ball. Tang Zheng suddenly opened his eyes, and a dazzling golden light flashed. He couldn't help but exclaim, "5th grade golden elixir, 4th grade vital fire." He opened his palm, and a darker flame immediately burned in his palm. It didn't make a sound, but the power it contained was unquestionable. 4th grade vital fire will definitely be more effective when refining pills, but I don't know which one is stronger, this 4th grade vital fire or Xiaobai's fire. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. Tang Zheng was familiar with it and knew that it was time. As expected, in the blink of an eye, he left Langya Pavilion and returned to his room. He secretly checked his body and found that his vital qi was becoming more condensed, and more vital qi was flowing out of his golden elixir. It was flowing continuously. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Although I relied on the sky-swallowing skill to absorb other people's power and increase my cultivation by 2 levels, this time I broke through with my own efforts. This is enough to show that I've consolidated my previous gains and offset the side effects of the sky-swallowing skill." He walked out of the room, and the Empyrean fairy's eyes immediately locked onto him. At once, her eyes almost popped out, and she exclaimed, "How did your cultivation increase again?" Previously, when she entered the room to see Tang Zheng, his cultivation didn't change much. How long had it been? In just a few hours he had advanced by leaps and bounds. Wasn't this cultivation speed a bit too fast? Tang Zheng nodded slightly at the Empyrean fairy, and said, "Is it very surprising to raise your cultivation?" The Empyrean maiden was so angry that she rolled her eyes at his calm tone and attitude. This was not surprising, then what was? "Young Master Tang, are you in there?" Suddenly, a person rushed in from outside like a raging inferno. Tang Zheng looked at the person who came and asked curiously, "Young Master Yen, why are you here?" The person who came was Yen Luyun. When he saw Tang Zheng, he pulled him back and said, "Quickly come back with me. The old man is looking for you. He said that there's something very important." Tang Zheng was confused. What was the matter with Yen Padian gathering so many people? However, since the other party was so anxious, it must be a big matter. Thus, he did not delay and said, "Then let's go. Fu Yao, tell the others that I'm going out for a while." The Empyrean fairy looked at his departing figure with a complicated expression. She couldn't help but feel jealous in the depths of her eyes. She was also a cultivation genius that many people envied. In fact, her background was extremely secretive and her background was extremely great. Therefore, she rarely envied others, let alone being jealous. However, during this period of time, she had been struck by Tang Zheng time and time again. Her self-confidence had almost been destroyed, and she was even a little jealous of him. Chapter 8:18. When Yen Padian saw Tang Zheng, he quickly walked over to welcome him. "Tang Zheng, please come in, you're finally here." Tang Zheng looked at him strangely. Why would he, who was always calm and collected, lose his composure like this? He asked, "What happened?" "I just received news that someone wants to take revenge on you." "Revenge?" Tang Zheng frowned. "Who wants to take revenge on me?" "The news of you killing the sword god's disciple, Jian Shisan, has already spread. The sword god has already entered the capital and wants to take revenge on you." Yen Padian said worriedly. "The sword god has entered the capital?" Tang Zheng was truly shocked. Back then, he had met the sword god in the snowy mountains in the northeast, and he still remembered it clearly. If not for the help of the 4 symbols Venerable and the sword spirit, he probably wouldn't have been able to walk out of that sky cavern. Yes, the sword god is here for you. I just received this news, so I quickly called you over to discuss countermeasures. Yen Patian said anxiously. Tang Jing frowned and said, soldiers come to block, water comes to cover the earth. Since the sword god is here, then dodging is definitely not possible. In the capital, Tang Jing was not afraid of the sword god. After all, other than his own strength, there was also the Empyrean fairy, a powerful external aid. If the sword god wanted to kill him, it would not be an easy task. Seeing that Tang Jing was not in a hurry at all, Yen Patian said anxiously, I am even more anxious than you. Why are you still so calm and collected, as if this matter has nothing to do with you? Although Yen Patian was also a Grandmaster stage expert, he knew that compared to the sword god, he had no chance of winning. Adding to the thunderous reputation of the sword god, he would naturally be shocked in his heart. Tang Jing smiled faintly. The sword god is also a human. I have already fought with him. He is not invincible, so there is no need to worry too much. Yen Patian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, this is truly the case of the emperor not being anxious. The eunuch is anxious. Tang Jing was moved and said, thank you, Yen family head, for your concern. This news is also very important to me. Otherwise, if I didn't make any preparations before encountering the sword deity, I'm afraid I would be in great danger. Yen Potion's heart relaxed. Tang Jing's gratitude had not caused his work to be in vain. Although, after Yen Qingyi returned from the northwest, she had once told him about the new prophecy that she had seen, and that the Messiah seemed to be a misunderstanding. However, Yen Patian still thought highly of Tang Jing and did his best to help him. The two of them had truly become allies in a trench. Then how are you going to prepare? Yen Patian asked curiously. This matter was of great importance. He had no choice but to ask. The corners of Tang Jing's mouth curled up into a mysterious smile as he said, the Song family has mobilized so many people and even invited the sword deity. They will definitely make a big fuss and let everyone watch a good show to see the strength of the Song family. Furthermore, I'm afraid that he has already investigated my background in the capital, so I think that they will take the initiative to attack. You said that they might attack your residence? Yen Patian asked with furrowed brows. Tang Jing nodded his head. It's not that it should be, but that it's a certainty. This time, the Song family will definitely take over the sword god's hand and get rid of me. Of course, they will go and kill me, and it will be even more intimidating, causing all the powers in the capital to fear the Song family in the future. Yen Patian pondered for a while, then nodded his head. Your analysis makes sense. But there are so many women in your family. If they get hurt, that won't be good. In Yen Potion's eyes, Tang Jing's romantic affairs were not worth mentioning at all. Which successful man did not have these things? The aristocratic families were already used to it. On the contrary, this was a manifestation of strength. Only the most powerful man would attract the favor of so many women. Tang Jing recalled the few people in his family, and the corner of his mouth revealed a sweet smile. He shook his head and said, there's no need to worry about them. This time, I just happened to borrow the sword god to let them truly see the true face of this world. There were a few women in the family who had lived a good life since they were young and had never experienced any great storms. Tang Jing had always tried his best to protect them, but in this world and because of their identities, they would eventually face all kinds of dangers. It was better to let them adapt in advance, so that when they encountered danger in the future, they would not be flustered and would not know how to deal with it. Although this was somewhat cruel, it was still much better than being at a loss when facing danger in the future and causing irreparable and serious consequences. Seeing that Tang Jing had already made up his mind, Yen Patian nodded his head in relief and said, our Yen family will help you fight against the enemies. Tang Jing did not reject his good intentions and expressed his gratitude. The next day, Tang Jing woke up and prepared breakfast for everyone. When everyone was gathered at the table, Tang Jing said, I have something to announce. I hope that everyone will stay at home today because someone will come. Someone? Who's coming? Tang Jing smiled mysteriously. You will know when the time comes, but be mentally prepared. I am afraid this day will not be that easy. When the time comes, don't be afraid, I will take care of everything. Seeing Tang Zheng acting mysteriously, as if there was danger involved, everyone had different reactions. Empyrean Fairy was calm and collected, as if it had nothing to do with her. Wu Yu was eager to give it a try. His eyes lit up, as if he couldn't wait to fight immediately. Fang Shishir had experienced the matters of the Rockefeller family, so she could be considered to have some experience. She was looking forward to it, because this was Tang Zheng's life. She had long wanted to integrate into it and help him. Lu Qingmei had never experienced these things before, so she was at a loss. Mu Hongyan seemed to have thought of something and was a little worried. Back then, when she was with her late husband, she was very worried about this kind of moment, which often meant that there were many unpredictable risks. Although he always comforted her and said that it was fine, the worry in the depths of his eyes could not escape her eyes. But at this moment, Tang Zheng was indeed calm and collected, but she did not see any worry in the depths of his eyes, as if he was not worried at all. She could not help but compare Tang Zheng with her late husband. Although her late husband was a descendant of an aristocratic family, with a prominent status, and countless people envied him, but compared to Tang Zheng, it seemed that her late husband was overshadowed, and Tang Zheng was like the blazing sun in the sky, extremely dazzling. Everyone finished their breakfast with different thoughts, and then sat in the living room, or in the garden, chatting and drinking tea, quietly waiting for everything to come. Tang Zheng blended in with everyone, a little green in the midst of 100 flowers, but it was also a happy and harmonious atmosphere. Everyone had been together for such a long time that they were completely harmonious. The initial feeling of unfamiliarity had also been eliminated. Therefore, one could only hear the occasional laughter and beautiful faces. This was definitely a picture that made one's heart beat faster. Although there was no information that indicated that the enemy would come today, Tang Zheng believed that the enemy would definitely not wait any longer. They would be impatient to show their strength in an attempt to regain their lost face. Close to noon, a group of people appeared outside the villa as expected. Although this villa was not very far from Yenching University, it was very quiet, and it was extremely difficult for ordinary people to come here, so when so many people suddenly appeared here, it did not attract any attention. The composition of this group was very complicated. There were old people in their old age, middle-aged people in the prime of their lives, and there were also youths full of vigor. The three generations of old, middle-aged, and young were very harmonious. Moreover, most of the people in this group were very good-looking. Those middle-aged men in the prime of their lives were casually pulled out, and they were also called uncles by infatuated girls. Not only were they handsome, but they also had an extraordinary temperament and style. As for the young man, it was even more so. His handsome face and beautiful face definitely covered many of the popular little fresh meat and female stars. Tang Zheng stood at the door, facing the sun, and smiled at this group of people. He smacked his lips and said, "Hee hee, everyone is really here." The Song, Yi, and Chu families were all here. Among them, the Song family was Song Jianan, Song Hanjun, Song Yu, and other people in the Song family that he did not know. The Ye family's lineup could not be underestimated. Yi Xuanji, Yi Tianming, Yi Ku, and even Yi Meiyu were among them. Yi Meiyu had already established a marriage contract with Song Yu, so it was not strange for her to be present. The Chu family had already declined, and it was obvious that there were fewer experts, only Chu Mingxian and Chu Xiaofeng. The Chu family had long been following the lead of the Song family, so of course they would not be absent from such an important place. Of course, the most eye-catching person was the sword god who was standing in front of the group. He stood proudly like a divine sword that was inserted into the earth, causing people to respect him. The sword god's gaze was sharp, like a sharp sword, as he stared at Tang Zheng. Last time, he let Tang Zheng slip away and even took away the sword spirit. He had always felt regret, and it was even more of a humiliation. Who would have thought that before this matter was settled, Tang Zheng would actually kill his beloved disciple, Jian Shisan. Jian Shisan was the most talented of his 3 disciples, and he had always placed high hopes on him. To die so unexpectedly, and at the hands of an old opponent, the sword god's mood could be imagined. But when the sword god saw Tang Zheng again, he was shocked. Although Tang Zheng had deliberately restrained himself, The aura that he unintentionally emitted still could not escape his golden eyes. What exactly happened to this brat? How did his strength increase so quickly? The sword god had seen countless geniuses in his life, but none of them could be compared to Tang Jing, even he himself could not. His talent was envied by the world, especially his achievements in the way of the sword. Ordinary people would find it difficult to catch up to him, but he knew that compared to Tang Jing, he was still slightly inferior. The others saw the two of them looking at each other from afar. If they knew what the sword god was thinking, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the ground. Tang Jing lifted his foot, and with just a small step, he actually arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. The power of the shrinking ground into an inch technique could be seen at a glance. Many experts only took a glance, and their expressions changed slightly. The corner of Tang Jing's mouth hooked up into a faint smile, and said, "With such a large force, it seems like you won't stop until you kill me. Tang Jing, you should have died a long time ago. Back then, when you first arrived in the capital, I should have killed you. There wouldn't have been so many things to do after that." Chu Xiaofeng jumped out and complained fiercely. Tang Jing glanced at him indifferently and said, "Since when is it your turn to speak here? The Chu family has indeed declined, and there are no rules at all." Chu Xiaofeng's face immediately flushed red, and he panted like an ox, unable to speak. Tang Jing did not put him in his eyes at all, and turned to the sword god and asked, "You are here to denounce me for the death of Jian Shisan, then do you know the true cause of Jian Shisan's death?" The moment these words were spoken, the expressions of the Song family members changed, because there was a detail that could not be revealed to outsiders. Chapter 8:19. Song Yu impatiently took a step forward and said, "Tang Jing, even at death's door you still want to talk nonsense. Master, you must not listen to his nonsense." Sword God's face was gloomy as he declined to comment. Tang Jing laughed in ridicule. "Song Yu, why are you so nervous? Could it be that you have a guilty conscience and are afraid that I will see through your disguise?" Song Yu's face flushed red as she said with a guilty conscience, "I'm just spouting nonsense. How could I have a guilty conscience?" "Is that so? Since you don't have a guilty conscience, then why are you so afraid that I will tell you the truth?" Tang Jing asked with a smile. This smile caused Song Yu's heart to turn cold as she stammered, "Who has the time to listen to your nonsense?" Sword God suspiciously looked at Song Yu and then looked at Tang Jing and said, "There's no harm in listening. I want to see what ugly things you can say." If Song Yu did not obstruct him like this, then perhaps Sword God would not have too much interest. But looking at Song Yu's appearance, he was instead a little interested in listening to Tang Jing's words. Song Yu was suddenly startled as she did not know what to do. Tang Jing glanced at Song Yu in ridicule and said, "Jian Shisan is indeed worthy of being Sword God's disciple. His sword arts are exceptional and his cultivation is also very profound. It's a pity that he was used as a spear by others. That day when I killed my way into the Song family, the main members of the Song family fled in a sorry state and became cowards. Only Jian Shisan alone with his sword stood out bravely. After a fierce battle with me, he was no match for me and was captured alive. I did not kill him, but he committed suicide." At that time, Jian Shisan resolutely chose to commit suicide in order to protect the information about the Azure Dragon Hall in his brain. This kind of resolute attitude was truly worthy of respect. An ordinary person definitely wouldn't have such boldness and courage. After Tang Jing finished speaking, the faces of the Song family members suddenly changed. The sword god's face became more and more gloomy, and he looked at the Song family rather unkindly. This was very different from the news that the Song family had told them. In the end, who was right and who was wrong? For a moment, it was hard for him to distinguish. But there was no doubt that there was something fishy going on. Song Jianan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He stepped forward and reprimanded, "Tang Jing, do you think you can fool the sword god with your lies? You underestimate the sword god too much. Everyone knows that your words are all lies. Whether it's a lie or not, wouldn't it be clear if we asked the others who were present at the time? Of course, I know that the closest members of the Song family are definitely in cahoots with you and won't tell the truth. However, there are so many other servants, and there will definitely be some who are upright among them. Naturally, they will tell the truth. Song Jianan said in his heart that it was really a close call. Fortunately, he was wise and heroic at that time and made a prompt decision to get rid of those servants. The dead tell no tales. In this way, Tang Zheng's words had no evidence, and naturally did not have much credibility. Song Jianan pretended to be filled with righteous indignation, and angrily complained, "Tang Zheng, you still have the face to ask those servants to testify for you. Could it be that you've forgotten what you did at that time? Not only did you kill Jian Shisan, you even started a massacre and killed all the servants of our Song family. The dead tell no tales, so you're trying in vain to use this kind of lowly lie to sow discord? Tang Zheng, could it be that you're treating all of us as fools and allowing you to deceive us?" Song Jianan's false accusation made Tang Zheng realize that this old ginger was indeed spicy enough. This ability to reverse black and white had reached perfection. Moreover, a strong chill rose in Tang Zheng's heart. Song Jianan actually said that those servants were all dead. What this meant, Tang Zheng was all too clear. These people were definitely dead, and they did not die by his hands, but by Song Jianan's hands. In order to protect the secret of that day, he did not hesitate to sacrifice so many people. This kind of ruthlessness and determination was inconceivable and made people shudder. The dead tell no tales, and Tang Zheng could not produce any strong evidence at all. Instead, he was falsely accused, causing him to have no way to clearly explain what happened that day. He said indignantly, "Song Jianan, you're ruthless. You actually killed all of your own servants. Then I have nothing to say, but justice is in the hearts of the people." A complacent look flashed across Song Yu's eyes, and she urged, "Master, let's do it. Take revenge for eldest senior brother, and pay with blood." Seeing that Tang Zheng was unable to produce any strong evidence, although the sword god revealed a puzzled expression, he did not make things difficult for the Song family. Instead, he stared at Tang Zheng and said with killing intent, "Disciples' words are reasonable. Let's not talk too much, let's kill him first." In the end, he still chose to believe in the Song family. He walked straight towards Tang Zheng. The sword god was short and even had a disability. He walked with a limp, 1 foot high and 1 foot low, but wherever he passed, deep footprints would be left on the ground. When he reached the entrance of the courtyard, the sword chi was already like a rainbow. His short and even ugly body suddenly changed greatly, as if he had become an omnipotent giant. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, his entire body tensed up, and he was ready to attack. "Stop!" Suddenly, a thunderous roar rolled over, and a group of people rushed over from afar. Yen Patian stood at the front of the group with an extraordinary bearing. Yen Qishan and Yen Luyun were among them, and another familiar person also attracted Tang Zheng's gaze, Qin Batian. Back then, Qin Batian had protected Tang Zheng without hesitation, and Tang Zheng had always remembered this friendship. Now that the two of them had not seen each other for several months, seeing Qin Batian now, Tang Zheng had mixed feelings. Both sides volunteered to help Tang Zheng. Their eyes and ears were all over the capital, and when they heard that the Song family had mobilized a large force and surrounded Tang Zheng's residence, both sides rushed over without stopping. Qin Batian did not know the sword god, but he could tell that this unassuming old man's strength was unfathomable. Although Yen Patian had never seen the sword god before, he recognized him with a single glance and was overwhelmed with shock. This was because Yen Patian thought that compared to the sword god, one was in the sky and one was on the ground. Although they had not fought, all of this was already destined by the heavens. Yen Patian did not have any intention of retreating. Instead, his fighting spirit was ignited, and he wished that he could immediately compete with the sword god. Everyone subconsciously looked at this group of people. As soon as he finished speaking, Yen Qishan had already stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him, glaring at the sword god like a tiger eyeing its prey. The sword god raised his eyebrows and looked at Yen Patian in ridicule. The two of them were old men, but their appearances and temperaments were completely different. The sword god had the eyes of a mouse, and if a stranger were to see him, even a baby would be scared to tears. As for Yenpadian, although he trained hard, most of the time, he was pampered and held a high position. Furthermore, he had a handsome appearance and was definitely a model among the old men. But facing the sword god's mocking gaze, Yenpadian did not dare to be arrogant, but he did not retreat either and said, "Your Excellency Sword God, if you want to kill Tang Jing, then you have to pass through my hurdle first. I also want to experience your Excellency Sword God skills." Yen Potion's words were loud and clear and entered everyone's ears clearly, causing many people to be moved. How much courage did it take to directly challenge the sword god? The people from the other 3 great clans looked at Yenpadian as if he was a madman and discussed animatedly. Yenpadian must be crazy. He actually dares to provoke the sword god. Does he not know how to write the word death? That's right, how could he be a match for the sword god? For Tang Zheng, he was actually willing to sacrifice his life. Is the relationship between Tang Zheng and the Yen family that close? So what if they're close? They don't know what's good for them. Isn't it just nice that they were taken care of by the sword god this time? One after another, they did not think highly of Yenpadian at all, but Yenpadian turned a deaf ear to them. Like a shield, he stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him. Tang Zheng was moved. The Yen family had treated him well. This favor was too great. How could he let him take the risk? He advised in a low voice, "Elder Yen, the sword god is here for me. I will deal with him." However, Yenpadian stubbornly shook his head and said resolutely, "I have long wanted to experience the sword god's skills. You don't have to worry about me." Seeing that his attitude was firm, Tang Jing swallowed his words of persuasion. He only made up his mind. If Yen Potion's strength was insufficient, then he would definitely help him. "Then be careful, Elder Yen." Yenpadian nodded and looked at the sword god warily. The sword god looked at Yenpadian with disdain and said, "Since you are courting death, then I will satisfy you." Shwa. The sword light of the nameless sword lit up in an instant. The sword was originally nameless, but because of the sword god, the illustrious name of the nameless sword spread out, causing people to feel fear. Yen Potion's pupils constricted. He took a deep breath and activated the Dragon Elephant Kung Fu. This was the consummate skill that he had cultivated his entire life, and when he fought with Tian Chanzi back then, he had also used the Dragon Elephant Kung Fu, but he had lost. Now that he was using the Dragon Elephant Kung Fu against his enemy, he did not know whether he would win or lose. The aura around Yen Potion's body suddenly changed, as though he had turned into a dragon. Of course, this was far from a true dragon. Tang Zheng's heart moved. If Yenpadian had a little bit of dragon qi in his body, then it would definitely be of great benefit to the Dragon Elephant Kung Fu, and its power would increase greatly. This was like the finishing touch of a painting, making the Dragon Elephant Kung Fu live up to its name. Tang Zheng's finger was as fast as lightning as it pointed at the spine of Yen Potion's back. Yen Potion's entire body trembled. Before he could understand what had happened, he felt a boundless energy pouring in from his back. He was overwhelmed with shock. This kind of energy was something he had never heard of before, but without a doubt, this energy was extremely mystical and was perfectly comparable to his Dragon Elephant Kung Fu. Kakaka. All the bones in Yen Potion's body crackled, his inner strength surged like a river, quickly increasing, and in the blink of an eye, his cultivation actually went up another level, reaching the shocking 6th level of the Grandmaster realm. Yen Potion's cultivation had always suppressed the people from the other families, but it was still extremely difficult for him to make a breakthrough, especially when his cultivation was so high, unless it was a coincidence. However, just because of the energy that Tang Zheng had injected into him, his cultivation had increased by 1 level. This kind of almost impossible thing had happened to him, and it could be said to be a miracle. For a moment, he was actually unable to react as his eyes stared blankly. Immediately, he became even more curious as to what this energy was and why it was so powerful. If the dragon qi was injected into someone else's body, it would not have such an effect at all. This was a miracle that only happened when it complemented his Dragon Elephant Kung Fu. Before the start of the battle, His cultivation had increased, which was a good sign. Yan Potion's confidence increased greatly. He turned his head and nodded slightly at Tang Zheng. His gratitude could not be more obvious. The sword god also looked at Yan Padian in shock. This sudden breakthrough in cultivation during the battle was too miraculous. He couldn't help but look at Tang Zheng, guessing that it must be the effect of that finger just now. Chapter 8:20. The change in Yan Padian was obvious in the eyes of many discerning people. They looked at each other in dismay, revealing expressions of shock. When they saw him attacking the sword god without hesitation, everyone's hearts were in their throats. Yan Padian let out a long roar, like a dragon's roar, his aura surging like a rainbow. The mocking expression on the sword god's face faded quite a bit as the nameless sword pierced down from the sky. Under the sunlight, the crack on the nameless sword was especially dazzling. Every time the sword god saw this crack, he would uncontrollably recall the scene in the sky cavern. Tang Zheng had fused with the sword's soul, and with a single move, he had actually caused a crack to appear on the nameless sword. The damage to the nameless sword that had accompanied him for decades was an eternal pain in his heart. The sword god loved the sword like a fool, and was often jokingly called a fool. With his sword damaged, his mood could be imagined, and the depth of his resentment towards Tang Zheng could also be imagined. This was something that had never happened before, causing his mind to tremble at that time. He pulled his disciple Qi Sha and retreated. What he did not know was that the sword was not done by Tang Zheng, but was controlled by Qi Yu's heart, causing it to be overused. At this moment, he saw that Tang Zheng had helped Yan Padian raise his cultivation with a light finger, so he became even more determined to get rid of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng, you killed my disciple, the sword 13, then you must have seen his 13 swords. Today, I will use the 13 swords to defeat this person, and let you know the power of my sword pavilion's sword techniques, and pay tribute to my disciple's soul. As soon as he finished speaking, the nameless sword turned into 2 into 4. In the end, it became 13 swords. This was not a real sword, but 13 sword qis that slashed towards Yan Padian in one go. The 13 swords only had a total of 13 moves, and they cycled endlessly. The sword god was a level higher than the sword 13, so when the 13 moves were used together, they became 13 sword qis. Puff puff puff. The air was split into several parts by the 13 swords, shooting in all directions. The space in front of Yan Padian became a vacuum. Boom. Yan Potion's fist struck the vacuum, rumbling like thunder. Sword chi and fist shadows surged, and a faint golden light flickered within the fist shadows. Yan Potion's heart trembled as he stared at the golden light that occasionally flashed in disbelief. This was a phenomenon that had never appeared before. This golden light was both familiar and unfamiliar. But without a doubt, because of this flickering golden light, its power had increased greatly. This must be the energy that Tang Zheng injected into my body, but what exactly is it to actually raise my dragon form method by so much? Yan Padian muttered in his heart. Fist shadows and sword qi intertwined, filling the sky with qi energy. Many of the spectators were still weak, so they were forced to gasp for breath. Their faces were pale as they retreated. However, many experts stared at the two of them as if they had understood something. A life and death battle between experts of this level was rare. It could give people a lot of insights. This was something that couldn't be bought with money. Naturally, they wouldn't miss this good opportunity. Inside the house, a group of women held their breaths as they watched the battle. Without a doubt, the shock that this brought to some of them could be imagined. Other than Marshall and Empyrean Fairy, who were calm and collected, the expressions of the others were very interesting. They finally understood what Tang Zheng meant by his words earlier. Someone had come, but not as a guest, but as an enemy of life and death. They gradually experienced the stormy seas that Tang Zheng had experienced in his life, and all sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts. Empyrean Fairy had long seen through Tang Zheng's intentions, so she said as if nothing had happened, "Look carefully, the storms and waves he will experience in the future will only be greater and more terrifying than this." Therefore, staying by his side, she would never feel monotonous. His life was an adventure filled with endless excitement. You have to adjust your mentality, otherwise you will be frightened again and again. Presumably, Tang Jing doesn't want to see this. These were all smart people. They finally guessed the reason why Tang Jing had left them to watch the battle. This was a preventive measure and also a symbolic signal. If they could adapt to this kind of scene in life, then Tang Jing would bring them along to see the scenery of life. Mu Hongyan's cheeks were slightly red. The other women all had an unclear relationship with Tang Jing. If they were to say that he would bring them along to see the scenery of life, there would naturally be no problem. But he had left her behind. Could it be there was some kind of thought-provoking deep meaning behind this? Thinking to this point, Mu Hongyan's little heart began to beat violently. She then took a deep breath and suppressed the chaotic thoughts in her heart. She secretly blamed herself. What was wrong with her? She was like a little girl who had never experienced anything. Master, can Nana also become this powerful in the future? Nana was not afraid at all. She was enjoying the battle with great interest, as if she was watching a movie. When the Empyrean fairy heard this, she revealed a gentle smile and firmly said, "You won't become as powerful as them. Instead, you will definitely be more powerful than them, and more than just a little." Wow, that's great. Nana will become powerful and then protect Big Brother. The little girl waved her small pink fist and cheered happily. Seeing that the two of them were unable to determine the winner for a while, Tang Jing's gaze swept through the crowd and locked onto an enemy that made him particularly jealous, Song Yu. Song Yu had gone against him time and time again. At the martial arts assembly, she had used the spirit transformation pill to harm him in an attempt to let him die at the hands of the werewolves. Later on, she had targeted him time and time again, and even had designs on Yi Dingdang. Therefore, Tang Jing had long since had the intention to kill her. In the past, Song Yu was like a turtle hiding in its shell. Now that he had the support of the sword god, he walked out fearlessly. Tang Jing laughed coldly, his figure flashed, and the War Soul sword looked down from above, cleanly slashing down at Song Yu. "Protect me!" Song Yu's first reaction was not to counterattack, but to seek the protection of others. She even had to flee in panic and hide behind the crowd. Song Yu had long since lost the thought of competing with Tang Jing, so she obediently ran away, which was the best way to save her life. "Arrogant brat, stop." Song Jianan had been staring at the battle the entire time, but he suddenly reacted. With a wave of his arm, he attacked Tang Jing. The thousand needles broken bone hand was ever-changing, and had once caused Tang Jing to suffer a lot. This time, Tang Jing had long been on guard against him, so with a flash of sword light, the War Soul sword slashed towards that hand. Song Jianan was originally at the 4th level of the Grandmaster stage, but after Tang Jing used the sky-swallowing technique to absorb 2 levels of his cultivation, he was reduced to the 2nd level of the Grandmaster stage. At the same time, Tang Jing's strength had greatly increased, and he had already reached the 5th level of the Gold Core stage. Their fighting strength could be imagined, and there was no need to compare. Even a blind person could see that Tang Jing was much more powerful. When the sword light fell, Song Jianan's arm could no longer move forward. Otherwise, he would definitely end up with a broken arm. Forced to retreat, he was forced to retreat. As soon as they exchanged blows, the two sides were able to determine the winner, which was unexpected. Especially the people from the Yi and Chu families, their expressions were especially interesting. They knew very little about the changes in Tang Jing during this period of time, so they were at a loss for what to do. Tang Jing's aura was like a rainbow as he pounced on his opponent. Song Jianan fought and retreated, in a sorry state. His face and ears were red, like a monkey's butt. Seeing that Tang Jing was chasing after him again, he did not care about the dignity of the head of the family. He actually grabbed a few of his subordinates around him and threw them at Tang Jing, trying to stop him from chasing after him. Tang Jing easily dodged, and the War Soul sword stabbed straight at Song Jianan's back. "Save me!" Song Jianan was really disgraced. He had no choice but to directly call for help. He and Song Yu were like family, with a kind of demeanor. When the Yi and Chu families saw this, they looked at each other. As an ally, they were ashamed. But if Song Jianan died, it would be even more tragic for them. After all, they were here to help the Song clan. Moreover, if Song Jianan died, then wouldn't Tang Jing turn around to deal with them? Wouldn't that be terrible? Of course, they had firm confidence that the sword god would win. At that time, there would be no chance for Tang Jing to jump around. The sword god was Song Yu's master. If they did not help the Song family now, then they would not be able to bear the consequences. Therefore, no matter what, they could not stay out of this. Tang Jing, stop! Yi Xuanji roared, and took the lead to charge towards Tang Jing, trying to stop him. Chu Mingxian was not willing to fall behind, and attacked as well. Yi Xuanji had been cultivating wholeheartedly for the past half a year, and his cultivation had increased from the first level of the Grandmaster stage to the second level of the Grandmaster stage. If it wasn't for Tang Jing, he wouldn't even be able to cross the threshold of the Grandmaster stage, but he didn't know how to be grateful at all. After the death of the previous patriarch, Chu Chongyang, Chu Mingxian also worked hard, and actually managed to reach the first level of the Great Master stage. The three Great Master stage experts surrounded and attacked Tang Jing. Song Jianan was lucky enough to escape and heaved a sigh of relief. He was shocked in his heart. The growth of this brat's power was getting more and more abnormal. He was obviously stronger than last time. Yi Xuanji and Chu Mingxian worked together to attack. Yi Xuanji used a sword and Chu Mingxian used a blade, and it was the sunset blade technique that was passed down in their family. Tang Jing had already experienced the sunset blade technique from Chu Chongyang, and was well aware of its power. Facing several master-level experts, Tang Jing did not dare to be careless as he thrust out his sword. Shwa shwa shwa, the heaven-flying immortal sword technique was nimble and elegant, just like an immortal. His sword attack was like a flying immortal, causing the two to be unable to defend against it. Although the heavenly fairy swordsmanship was not the best swordsmanship in the eyes of the fairy of the ninth heaven, it was the most exquisite swordsmanship in the eyes of Yi and Chu. When the sword came, it gave people the illusion that it was unstoppable. Roar! Kill. However, the two of them were resolute people after all. With a loud roar, they dispelled the strange thoughts in their hearts. The large blade slashed down, like a setting sun descending from the sky. The large blade glowed with sunlight, and its aura was terrifying. Ever since Yi Xuanji saw Yi Dingdong's wind-chasing sword technique, he seemed to have comprehended something. His attainments in sword arts had increased by another level, which was why he was able to break through to the second level of the Great Master stage. Ding, ding ding, clang. The swords and blades clashed, creating a series of intense sparks. The people who were standing close to them were injured by the sword chi and retreated in panic. However, there were two people who did not retreat. Yan Qishan and Qin Batian looked at each other and rushed forward without hesitation. Bullying us with numbers, do you really think we don't have anyone left? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.